Hello and welcome back to Our Game here with myself, Shane Stapleton, Michael Verney with me as ever. We're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off on slick jerseys like this little Kerry number here, like that Offaly one there. You debuting that Offaly one for us today?
Debuting it, boy, yeah. Jiz is an absolute peach from the mid-80s. Jiz is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's actually too good to wear it unless it's like a special occasion. I would feel this is the Orga Retro jersey royalty, really.
Well, maybe if there's a Joe McDonagh Cup final in Croke Park this year, for example, that might be the time to bring it out.
Just remember, we're coming for you. It's a long game, not a short game. We are on the march.
Tell me this, do you think you'd ever wear or bring an Offaly jersey into the press box? I have to say, look, guilty. 2013, that famous qualifier in Nolan Park, I had a Tipperary jersey just sitting on the back of my seat in the press box, shamefully and all. Yeah, I did it. Would you do it?
I probably wouldn't, to be fair. It was in the press box for the under-20 All-Ireland this year, and you get caught up in it, and you're kind of doing a bit of shouting at that. But I was sitting beside Kevin O'Brien from 42, who's from Tullamore as well, so it's a bit of an Offaly loving. But I don't think I'd wear a jersey in, now, to be fair. I think people have would know my loyalties. I don't think I need to wear the jersey just to make it too obvious.
Yeah, regular viewers also know that you're engaged now, and as Pwell74 says here, Verney, you could get married in that.
You could get married in a lot worse, I'll tell you that. Who needs a tux or anything like that when you have this beauty?
And Mark Corcoran adds that the Offaly long game has been fair long now.
No, we weren't. I don't know what we were in the last couple of years, but we're on the move now again, thankfully.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, just so people know out there, the Monday show is going to continue being free to view, and it's the Thursday show is going to be going behind Patreon as it was last week. So keep an eye out. If you do want to sign up for that, it's patreon.com/OurGame. And over the course of the year, there's give or take 100 podcasts. Think about it. Over the course of the year, you're looking at maybe 50 cents a podcast. So I think it's more so are people bothered to just go and sign up, because it just takes about 2 minutes and then you have it for the year there. And, are the podcasts worth 50 cents a pop? I think they're more than an hour considering the amount of time we put in.
A lot of people would say, like, it's the equivalent of a cup of coffee. This is the equivalent of a squirt of coffee. 50 cents. You couldn't go wrong. In fairness, we tried to cover every angle, and it's great to have the viewers on board as well. So the more viewers that are on Patreon, the more comments that get in, and there's a great hop. There's a great hop between the audience, I think, and us, and they always bring up things that maybe we haven't thought of and ask questions that maybe we wouldn't think of as well. So the more the merrier that we have on board on Patreon.
Yeah, and Flash asks here, is the Patreon show live or pre-recorded? No, it is live. It's just behind, you have to go to that Patreon link, which you only get access to if you are signed up on that. And as I said, it only takes about a minute to sign up, the same as if you were to buy something online. So I'll stop going on about it because that'll bore people.
Just quickly, it's like that American, the American drive, the American government drive trying to get people into the army. Flash, we want you on Patreon.
We certainly do. Right, the comments are flying in already because, look, there was so much drama over the weekend. I was down in the good field in Thurles watching Ballyhale against St. Thomas's. Only this morning then, after I came back up, did I get a chance to watch Ballygunner beating Schlockneil in their semi-final. They're into their first All-Ireland final as well. But it was a great tweet from Darragh Crahur, who's a journalist. You'll see him in horse racing and GAA across the board. And he said, have two clubs as close to one another as Ballyhale and Ballygunner played in an All-Ireland final before? And I think a lot of people out there don't realise that the Reeds and the Mahonys are actually cousins, which TJ Reid referenced yesterday after the game.
Yeah, and even remember there was a time up in Dublin where Philip Matney was living with like Noel McGrath and Wally Walsh, and I think Dara Fives was basically an inter-county house as well. But it's gas that they're going to end up playing each other in an All-Ireland final now. I'm sure the Ballygunner lads have been looking on, particularly the Mahonys, have been looking on enviously at the Reeds and co over the last couple of years, and they have a chance to settle their score after getting into the All-Ireland final for the first time. Just on Dara's tweet as well, when we played Portumna in 2008, there was 14 miles between Borough and Portumna, and we were actually training in the same pitch on alternative nights, which I can't imagine. Potentially might have happened with Yee and Coola training Bray and maybe someone else training there, coming up to maybe an All-Ireland campaign or a Leinster campaign, but I've never heard of that happening before. Then it kind of got us thinking, that's the closest maybe that two teams would be in a final. Like, what's the furthest apart two teams would be? And the one I came to was Na Piarsaigh against Cushendall in 2016, and I just looked it up there. it's the guts of 440 kilometres between the two, about 4 hours and 40 minutes. So they don't get too much further apart. Thought there might have been a Cork team in the final against an Antrim team, but couldn't find it if there was. But there's a bit of a difference between the guts of 440 kilometres and 14 miles between us and Portumna.
I see Jonathan Higgins was threw in a reply to Darrell Gore saying Ross Gray and Rhinos is about 20 miles between the two teams there.
Yeah, they played in the first one in 71, which was actually played in the real good field in St. Brendan's Park in Burr.
So give us your comments there. What would have been the longest journey that you're aware of, even at I suppose, or the longest distance between clubs, even at junior level, intermediate level? Let us know. We know that the Kerry team is going to be against the Kildare team in the All-Ireland Club Intermediate Hurling Final, but that's definitely not the longest distance. So what a dramatic weekend. What comes? Do you know, actually, I want to make this point before I asked you what was your kind of highlight of the weekend, and we'll get to the go to the weekend and all that later on. But I just think it's so good that there isn't these massive, like a 3-month gap and then a 6-month gap between these club games. We're really getting to see the form of the likes of Ballygunner and Ballyhale. They've played so much in the last 6 weeks, month and a half, or maybe even 3 months if you want to go back to their county championships. I know Ballygunner had that nice break after their county final, but we're really getting a feel for the form that these teams are in. Like with Coola a couple of times, you'd play, I'd say start of December, you'd play a Leinster final, and then you mightn't be out again until late January. And you've had that Christmas break and you're wondering, where are we at? And then you 6 weeks again then to the All-Ireland final. Whereas this is just kind of rat-a-tat. I think it's great because you really do get that feeling of momentum around the club.
Yeah, it's difficult because a manager and a management team is trying to find the science. Like what's the perfect time to give these lads off? Do we need to maintain training so that they don't fall back behind? That's a difficult one. I think from a spectator's point of view and a neutral's point of view, like we're totally bought in to the All-Ireland Club final now. And it's not going to really go out of our memories. It's always going to be there in the back of our minds over the next 3 weeks. Whereas if it was 4 to 5 weeks, like it would have been in the past, the momentum kind of dies and then it builds up the week of it. Whereas I think people are going to be looking forward to that game for the guts of the next 3 weeks. And we probably got the final not that everybody wanted, but probably what would be regarded as the two best teams in the country, even though Ballygunner hadn't been in a final before. And we couldn't have gotten in more dramatic circumstances. I don't know. I was down in Ennis covering Limerick and Clare. I was with Jason Byrne from The Sun, and we just pulled in around the corner to listen to the last couple of minutes of it. And Goosepimp was listening to radio commentary. It was just he can't score. He can't score. He's at the edge of the D, out to the side. It's hard enough to score on the 21 in the middle now with bodies in, but out the side it's near impossible. And just when I got to look at the video after and look back at the game this morning, he couldn't have probably connected with it any better. It was just boom, straight through. From the second it left the hurl, I'd love to know the exact amount of nanoseconds between the second it left the hurl and it hit the back of the net, but it went into the net like a rocket. And just the fact that it was nearly the very last play as well, and snatching a victory from what looked like the jaws of defeat, and especially when you take it on the back of the Rhinos game in the Leinster semi-final as well. Ballyhale shouldn't be here. They should not be here, but they are. And I think the narrative going into the final is going to be so interesting. Oh, Ballyhale, this isn't the same Ballyhale as a couple of years ago. They're hanging on, but they're still there. And a lot of people might have Ballygunner as favourites going into the final. Ballyhale could be somewhat written off going into the final, which sounds mad for a team going for 3 in a row, but that could well be the case.
And funnily enough, the criticism that Ballygunner got after the Lockmore performance, or the focus that was put on, the bit of play acting or whatever, and the fact that they'd been questioned about, do they have the stomach for winter hurling and all of this. So I don't think either team will lack that motivation, or, will Darragh O'Sullivan or James O'Connor, will they kind of lack anything to say to their players to drive them on for this final? I don't think they will. I think this could be absolute fire and brimstone. But you know what? We have a comment in here from SSRI. Newtown Chandram Dunloy in 2004, I think, and I just looked it up. 4 hours 52 of a spin between the two places, 473.5 kilometers if you were to go by the M7.
We could have a winner. Like that.
We have a winner.
That's some spin. I didn't cop that one actually. Yeah, but that's some spin to be going. In fairness.
Yeah, Mark Meehan says, would you be in favour of finishing club championships before Christmas? I mean, in a way, it would be great, but I suppose. There's so many competitions to be played. Some of them have to go and kind of traverse either side of Christmas. So I think it's worked quite well this year.
Yeah, I think if if the All Ireland's going to be finished on July 17th, I think there's probably no reason why county championships, provincial championships, and All Ireland probably could be played within 5 months. Could still be tricky though. And I'm very, very keen on having a specific couple of weeks for the Fitzgibbon where they're given a focus on that competition, because I think it's such a brilliant competition. But if possible, I'd probably trying to get it played within the calendar year.
James Daly says, best NFL week ever. 49ers still going, Shane. The crowd in Ennis yesterday for a preseason game was ridiculous. Heard TJ goal coming home on the radio. Some man he is. And I suppose you sent me a couple of pictures earlier on in terms of, where the free was being taken from, and obviously the strike and where the goalie moved towards. And I'll bring that up on the screen for a second. But just to even talk about the comeback, I mean, this is typical of a team that is used to getting across the line and they don't panic. And that high ball went in. Now, I was talking to the Coola goalkeeper, Sean Brennan, who's also the Dublin goalkeeper, about what did he make of the situation, the way it transpired, the positioning of different people, even the foul on TJ in the first place. So, ball went in, and Fintan Burke, who was brilliant, he was excellent again, and what a player he's going to be for Galway. But he wrestled TJ to the ground, and Sean said to me he'd be happy and almost happy enough that TJ was wrestled to the ground, because to score a free from that position just to the side of the D, I suppose he put it down about, I'll bring up the picture here. You can see on the top left image there, do you see that sort of faint red circle that's just underneath the linesman there? That's where the ball is. So he's taking the shot from maybe 23 yards out at a slight angle, so that maybe that adds another yard or two. And Sean said to me, he's nearly happy enough that he can sort of set up his whole defenders and face that free, rather than have TJ a bit closer to goal again and turning and maybe getting a strike off. So he's nearly happy enough with that setup, has that confidence. So how did you see it? Because you sent me those images. So what was in your mind when you were sending this?
There was a lot of things going on, I have to say. Number one, I think it's so important for whoever's on the line, and particularly the goalkeeper, to have a clear line of vision of where the ball is. And if you look at Colin Fennelly, in the yellow helmet there, Colin Fennelly standing in front of Gerald Kelly. I think the cornerback or fullback or whoever's on Colin Fennelly has to take a bit of responsibility. You have to get him out of the way. And it's probably not something you do before TJ is lining up the ball. It's something you do maybe as he's lining up the ball, and you just literally, if you have to just scrum him out of the way without making it legal, just get him a shoulder, make sure the goalkeeper has a clear line of sight of the ball coming through. And as the free has been hit, Gerald Kelly doesn't have a clear line of sight of the ball. So he actually steps out in front of Colin Fennelly, which means he's about 6 yards from the goal, which you can say he's the first line of defence then, but it also means that he has less time to see the ball. And if he's moving to get around in front of Colin Fennelly as the penalty has been taken, he potentially has lost sight of the ball even for a split second. Then he's a smaller gap. If it's 22 yards to the 6 yard box that he's at, he has 16 yards to see the ball, a ball that's coming at an immense speed. And there's also and he doesn't see it. And there's also a possibility that he could be blindsiding the guys behind him as well. There's for me, there's too many people in around there. I think you'd be much better if you had your five on the line and you could clearly see the ball coming through. This is a brilliant video to see the angle at.
Yeah, so you see Colin Fennelly is sort of sliding across. I'm just going to pause it there. And as the keeper comes, watch, he actually kind of half trips over Colin Fennelly's leg. Now he's down in that prone position, and there's maybe, 3 guys on the line. So if you look at that image there, the way I see it, there's about 12 or 13 St. Thomas's guys that are there in the shot. How many of them are actually facing up the ball in a position to actually, we all can see where, give or take, TJ Reid is going to put the ball, but how many of those lads are actually in the position to try and block it? There's maybe only 4 or 5, maybe 6 players at most by the time that he's winding up to take that shot. And also, again, this is just talking to Sean Brennan about being a goalkeeper. He's like, you need to have a set position as a goalkeeper, have your strong base. Because if you're moving, it's very hard to also kind of shove the hurley off in whatever direction to try and get a ball that's going at, who knows, 100 plus miles
and even if you do stop it, Shane, you mightn't stop it in front. You might actually parry it behind because you don't have that strong base that Sean talks about there.
Yeah, so you got to get that base. And also, I know TJ talked about afterwards with the amount of players on the line and, they can't react and all that kind of stuff. But, why isn't the whole line filled? I mean, I know a player could get struck by that ball and they might struggle to get up after it, but like there's something like 3 or 4 players on the line. I'll just bring it up here again. There's maybe 3 or 4 players on the line, and you're just kind of wondering how what exactly happened that they didn't get in the way of this. Sorry, I was just messing with the screen there for a minute. So I'll just go back a little bit again, and we'll watch it here. Look at the huge gap. So if the ball goes past it's kind of game over.
Yeah, that's it.
So it was. So
yeah.
I'd be hugely critical of the setup there, and I think number one, the defender, and you mentioned Colin Fennelly. I think the defender needs to have a row with Colin Fennelly before the free is struck. I know you said it the other way around, push him at the last second, but nearly start a bit of a row to give the referee a decision to make of, do I need to get this guy out of the way here?
And should he be actually in here? Should he legally be in here as well?
Yeah, well, it's a 21-yard free, which is obviously brought back again. So whether he's actually allowed to be there or not, but if you bring attention to Rory McCann there, I think he's going to tell Colin Fennelly, get out of the way. But I can't quite believe that it should be 4 or 5 lads on the line and maybe the goalkeeper standing a yard or two in front of them. That's generally the sort of the setup. And I would have always been big on this when I was standing on the line for frees. Look, it didn't really pan out too often that you needed it. Sometimes it went in, sometimes it didn't. But like, let's say the guy on the line, so he's standing up and he's ready for anything high. The guy underneath him, or to the inside of him, is nearly ready if it comes low. The lad on from him again, if the goalkeeper's right in front of him, the goalie will get anything there. Maybe he's ready for low, and then low and high. Whatever. Mix it up so that you've got those different angles covered and lads aren't really hooking each other. Yeah. So that would be my thought on that.
I'd have to pay compliments to Colin Fennelly as well, because it's an awful lot of cuteness really there, making he's not involved in the play, but he's making an absolute nuisance of himself. He's probably not going to get a touch to it or anything like that, but he's made a nuisance. He's made the keeper make a decision. He's forced them into an uncomfortable position when not saying it should have been a comfortable position, but like, how many goals have you seen scored from those positions since the rules were brought in where you can't carry the ball in past the 21? I've seen very few. You might see the odd one in the middle, but I can't remember the last time I've seen a free taken from out anywhere near there with no touch to it and it hitting the net. No touch whatsoever. I can't remember the last time.
I mean, Adrian McGrath makes a good comment here. St. Thomas's were incredibly passive there. I mean, you have to have someone standing up there and taking control, whether it's the goalkeeper, whether it's one of their experienced players, whoever it is. Someone has to look around and think, this isn't right. This isn't the setup. So, like, I'm not taking anything away from TJ Reid no more than you are, but I do think that they kind of added to their own problems there. And you know what? I'm going to read some quotes from TJ Reid because he was talking about what he did with his hurley just to have it ready for this game. And I was like, did he really do that? But this is what he said. He goes, it was just pure luck at the end, the penalty and the free, just pure blessed. Luckily enough, I put my hurley in a bucket of water last night just to give the boss a bit more weight. I'm glad it came into use. I struck him very well. He's also talked about the penalty. I asked the ref what was left, and he said 30 seconds. I had only one option. That was to go for the goal. Lucky it went in. There were bodies there, so I knew if I struck it that someone might get in the way. When there are bodies there, people can get blocked off. So I just went for pure power and it went in. I got it on the sweet spot. I couldn't have struck it any better. As soon as I struck it, I knew it was going in. Dipping the stick in water the night before. I mean, if I had a hurley and I knew it was kind of a bit dry or whatever, I might try that trick. And it actually does work. But doing it the night before, would you not be worried that your hurley would be a bit imbalanced or wouldn't have? I don't know. Would you do that the night before again?
No, this is old school now. I haven't heard of anyone really doing this in a while. The potential with it as well, that it actually could loosen your plate a small bit as well. And it could have an effect on your hurl. For to say that he did it the night before, it's mad. It's kind of a mad scenario in that dipping in the water. Now, there'd be young lads going around the country trying this just to get this extra bit of power, this extra bit of weight. But he couldn't have connected with it any better. I'd love to see it from his point of view and see, like, where was the little margin for error that he was looking for? Where was the target he was looking for? How much space was there actually on the line? And just something you said as well there about sometimes there can be kind of too many cooks can spoil the broth in around there around the goal. Remember, Clare had the guts of about 11 lads on the line for a Nash free in 2013 replay, and they were all carrying goalie hurls. And you're thinking, like, there's nowhere for this ball to go. But sometimes when there's too many lads there, you can end up getting in each other's way. And that may have happened. That may have happened there yesterday. Interesting as well. I was looking back at the penalty this morning too. And Gerald Kelly is left-handed.
Yeah.
So he holds the hurl in his left hand. But for the penalty, just before, for the second before TJ takes the penalty, he's holding the hurl with his right hand on top. So traditional right hand on top. And I think he wants to make...
sell a pup to TJ, is he?
Yeah, I think so. And I think he was trying to make sure that, if he's left hand on top, where does the keeper not want the ball to go? He doesn't want it to go back across his body because it forces him to move. So I think he's trying to goad him into put it into an area and maybe think that this guy is right hand on top. But TJ is not buying it at all. And Gerald Kelly doesn't move off the line. Just a brilliant penalty, ice cool. And there was just so many little elements to this game. Like it is kind of literally like forensically analysing an American football game. So many little plays, so many little things happened throughout the game. You would have to feel sorry for Thomas's. They threw everything at it. I followed the commentary after the game, and everybody was saying, it was robbery, and Thomas's were like miles the better team. They were the better team. I don't think they were miles the better team. Ballyhale probably had themselves to blame with some kind of errant shooting in the second half, but they were able to keep hanging in. Couple of things from a Ballyhale point of view. Joey Holden went out centre back for the last quarter, and while there was no big clearances or anything like that, he got in 6 or 7 possessions and just kind of was able to keep Conor Cooney out of the game and get attacks kind of moving there as well. I thought TJ starting corner forward was a really good move. Got 2 points from corner forward, set up a couple of scores. He mightn't have dictated play, but I thought that was kind of a smart move as well, to put him on a maybe not Fintan Burke or not David Burke, to put him on one of their, shall we say, their kind of weaker players by putting him in the corner. They were 2 good moves. A couple interesting ones as well. Darren Mullen absolutely got Conor Cooney on the money with a shoulder, and then had to go off straight away as a result of it. So Ballyhale had plenty of things that went wrong in that game. Their 2 cornerbacks going off, Kevin and Darren, and they were still able to find a way to get over the line. It's remarkable, really.
Yeah, no Ronan Corcoran either. Like we talked about it on the show on Thursday. For those who missed it, we talked about his hand injury. I believe it's a broken hand. We'll see if he's available for the final. We'll see if Darren Mullen, who was cradling his shoulder once he went off, will he be available? Will Kevin Mullen? So it is going to test their panel a nice bit, but they have a nice bit of quality there. Like TJ played, it was kind of 2-man, it was 3-man full forward line at times. But my read on it, and I was high up in the press box in Thurles, so you just got that fantastic view down across the course of the pitch, which is very similar to the TV camera angle that you see when you're watching at home. But at times it was like 2 inside, which at times it was pretty much always Colin Fennelly in there. I think he came out later in the game, and Joey Cuddihy was in there a lot of the time, and you had TJ Reid, who was moving across the line, and at times it was 2 inside, and he was playing out in between the half forward line and the full forward line. And when that crossfield ball went into him, I think Keane Mahoney did well enough, but there was a few times where, with the pace not being there with TJ anymore, quite at that level that it was. I mean, look, that's not criticism, that's just reality when you hit 34. But a couple of times he got the ball and he'd sort of do the old show and go. He'd have the ball in his hand and he'd offer it one way and he's gone off the other, and he'd do a lovely stick pass or he'd get a nice score. He got a couple from play there during the first half. Owen Cody out centre forward. Oh my God, the job he did. Now, the way that St. Thomas is set up, David Burke was named number 6 here, and Evan Duggan was named number 8. But Evan Duggan went back centre back and he man-marked Owen Cody, which allowed David Burke to just kind of sweep from number 6 there. And David Burke was good and came out with ball and just beautiful stick passes and just carrying it and delivering it. He was very good. So the point that we make about did they get robbed? No, they didn't, but they had themselves certainly in a position to win the game. The problem with them is Éanna Burke was brilliant and scored 4 points in play in the first half, but he missed a very easy goal chance. He was excellent and he would have been named man of the match probably for my money if they had to get over the line. But he soloed through brilliantly behind the cover of the Ballyhale half-back line, which, everyone struggles to get in behind that. Soloed through, did a pass over to Oisin Flannery, who it didn't quite find its mark, but Flannery managed to flick it back to him, and he's in one-on-one with the keeper. Now, look, Dean Mason, I know you're going to say this, he did well, but you just absolutely have to finish that. And let me just check what the score was at the time of that one. So that would have put them 1-8 to 7 points ahead. Now, obviously, Ballyhale can come back from that, but missing your goal chance when it's there, because it kind of puts a dagger into the heart of the opposition and makes them worry about their backline. And maybe, James O'Connor will have to start making changes. But between that and the times that they missed easy enough scoring chances or got turned over handy, and then Ballyhale kind of hit them hard the other end, I think that's the sort of stuff that caught up with them later on. Not to mention, like Owen Cody, he got, was it 4 points from play in the first half? And then a couple of them were just ridiculous. Like, I think he got onto a couple of puck out breaks down either flank in the space of a couple of minutes and just fired them over. Just no problem at all. One of them off the stick, solo off the stick, straight over the bar. And it's just errant. And how on earth do Ballyhale continue to produce players of this quality?
Yeah, it's savage, isn't it? Like Cody was the key is like Cody might have been. I don't even think he was quiet in the second half. I think he actually got on a lot of ball, but for them to be in the position for TJ to score the free, they had to stay in contention in the first half, and he was brilliant in the first half. TG4 did a lovely camera from behind the goals of a puck out that was delivered into an area, and you can see the two wing backs crossing, and they're not sure whether they should be crossing or not. The ball is put into an area, and Owen Cody is there, and it's funny, TJ is standing out around 45 yards out, and his man is marking him. And I do think if his man had been marking anybody else, he would have went to Owen Cody and forced him to make a move. But because you're marking TJ, you can't leave him free. So I thought that was actually really a kind of a smart use of TJ in a way. He wasn't actually doing anything, but he was occupying someone, and they know the cornerback's not going to go and leave TJ Reid, because you're not going to leave the best player on the field by himself. But there was so many big performances from Thomas. As you mentioned, Fintan Burke, David Burke, brilliant. Bernard Burke, probably the best game I think he's ever played, I would say. Best game he's ever played. James Regan, particularly in the last 20 minutes, he was brilliant. He won a couple of really good frees. Just a quick one as well on the penalty. For the life of me, I understand that Colin Fennelly put his head down somewhat, but I'm a defender. I will always be sympathetic to the defender. The defender pulled him down around the head. Like he gave him the opportunity. He showed him the opportunity. Are you going to foul me or not? He grabbed him around the head. He dragged him to the ground. In my view, that to me, that's a penalty all day, every day. And I find it hard to see the argument otherwise. Is it debatable whether Colin Fennelly charges sometimes? Yes, it probably is. But you know what he's going to do. So you can't overcommit yourself either. And the defender kind of overcommit itself, put his arms around him, end up dragging him to the ground. To me, it was only ever going to be one thing once he brought him to the ground, and that was a penalty. And it's funny, Colin Fennelly has struggled for form, but there was still a couple of things he did yesterday. Like he did direct hand into 2 goals. And even on TJ's performance as well, to me, TJ was man of the match, because I thought he controlled the game at times in the first half when they were struggling. And at the end of the day, he scored that penalty nerveless, and he won the free and then scored it. You know, so to me, like I think he had a bigger say in the game than anybody else on the field. But like it was just, to me, it was the best club game I can remember seeing in a long, long time at this stage. I've seen brilliant county finals, say particularly we'll say Killadangan and Lockmore Castellani last year, but this was. This was the All-Ireland semi-final we all wanted. It's just that the hurling was so hard. It was just so hard. And I think Thomas has only gave away their first free in like the 28th minute or something of the first half. They were unbelievably well disciplined. And then it's kind of funny that it was their ill discipline that actually cost them at the end of the game, having been so disciplined up to that point. But it was just an absolute brilliant game. As I said, you would have to feel bad for Thomas's saw the image with Kenneth Burke after, with his wife and his young kid coming out into the field. Like, it's just how do you get your head around that at the time? You've a foot and 3/4 in an All-Ireland final, then all of a sudden you're gone.
Yeah, like this Thomas team got hammered. I know they had a couple of players absent in the 2019 All-Ireland final, lost by 17 points. No Shane Cooney for this game. Everyone just, I mean, us included. I mean, I predicted like an 8-point win for Ballyhale in this game. Like, what a performance. But I know Dara Corcoran got man of the match on TV yesterday, and he made a great burst that set up the play for Colin Fennelly to win the penalty. And I'll come to that in a minute, and I'm going to work in some of the comments. But I agree with you, TJ Reid, definitely man of the match, because he did the most decisive things that decided the game. And I'm even just looking at some of the notes that I took from the game here yesterday, and set up a score for Joey Cudahy early on. 3 minutes later, sets up another one for Joey Cudahy. 15th minute sets up a point for Adrian Mullen. Even that run that Dara Corcoran made, which led to the goal. Who forced the turnover? TJ. And obviously, he got a few points himself. And that was, look, 37 minutes, set up a point for Cudahy. 39th minute, won a free that he scored himself. 41st minute, he missed the free, but he won another one. So he was just there throughout the game, which is like, what a testament to a man at 34 years of age that he's still just so impactful at this stage. And one other point before I forget it is there a more dramatic kind of last gasp goal in an All-Ireland semi-final since Claren Bridge, when Éanna Murphy got that last gasp one against De La Salle in Thurles? Just the drama that you see at club level is unbelievable. Will I just read a couple of those comments before I throw you back in?
Yeah.
Paul Kirk says, from the very second the free was conceded, St. Thomas's didn't look like they were setting themselves up properly to defend the free. At one point, there was only 3 players on the line. Mark Meehan, don't want to blame anybody, but the keeper ran towards TJ when he was striking the sitter, gave himself no chance. Porrick Gill, Fennelly charges first, so it's a free out. What is the Thomas's team thinking for the TJ free? How is the entire 15 not blocking up the goals? SSRI, the elite teams, big name teams, always get the vital calls when it comes down to it. Johnny Ryan, big win for Ballygunner. Schlockneil through everything, both on and off the field. A lot of their frees, well, less known players stood up, added real fight in a year, which was missing in the past. So I would say, I think it's a penalty as well. He did put the head down a little bit, but it didn't go on long enough for the referee really to blow it. But that is the reason that the player grabbed onto him. So I'm a little bit torn on this one. And if the player had to let go as quick as Fennelly stopped pushing I don't know. I'm really, really torn over it, but I think it'd be a harsh one to give a free out.
I'm not even sure if he actually charges into the man that much or if he just puts his head down. I didn't think it was a charge, I have to say. I think Colin Fennelly has charged an awful lot worse than that down through the years. I didn't think it was a really obvious charge. It's funny when you're listening to commentary on it, then you go and see it yourself. You almost have an opinion based on what other people are saying. And then I was looking, I was like, I have a completely different opinion. No way. It's a penalty every day of the week for me. But there was just so much drama to it. I don't know if I agree about the elite teams always getting the calls. I think the defender did enough for the referee to make the decision and make the decision straight away. No doubt in his mind, it was a penalty in his mind straight away. And I heard a couple of the players were arguing about it, but that kind of went away quite quickly. I think it was more arguing with the fact that they're after giving away a penalty now that's going to let Ballyhale into a game that they should have been out of.
Yeah, there's so many comments flying in here. I'll just try and get through a few of them before we move on to the Ballygunner-Schlockneil game. Marinating the hurley, love it. That's exactly what TJ did. Joe Butler, the key to the strike was that hit it on the sweet spot at shoulder height. Bert Giggles, Ash Tiger, great analysis. You really have the best GA offering, lads. Fair play, not just the passion, but your CVs and intercounty and club. You can stand over shows more than most journalists out there. Appreciate you saying that. Yeah. TJ went to the side Jerry Kelly wanted him to go to on the pen, but what a belt of a ball. I felt sorry for St. Thomas's end of an era for that team now. I don't know if I agree with that. They've just won 4 in a row, and it's not as if their players are all ancient.
No, I wouldn't say that. And if you look at David Burke yesterday, looked as good as ever, I'd say. And if he can stay injury free now, like there was a great point Owen Cody got down by the sideline off the hurl, where David Burke did nearly everything he could possibly do to put him off and stay with him. Cody checked back inside and off the hurl, that point. And then that kind of tennis serve point that he got when he was right in on top of goal. You have to say as well, Cody could have had a goal at the very start, as Adrian Mullen could have had with a flick as well. David Burke got a flick in the second half when the ball was in around the goals. I think it was around Adrian Mullen as well. So like they probably lived dangerously at times too. I definitely don't think it was as much of a Thomas's domination as I had heard before I watched the game. I'll put it that way.
No, they had themselves in a brilliant position to win the game, but just didn't see it across the line. Walsh Willie, Shamrock's only huffing and puffing, and yet find themselves in the final. They'll need to up it hugely for the final. And Jared O'Dwyer, this is obviously about TJ's hurley. The trick is to dip the come in warm water with a dash of honey for 10 minutes the night before a game. It works wonders. Don't tell anybody. Anyone else out there do that? Have you done that? I might go golden. Will golden syrup work just as well?
I don't know if Jared's pulling the Mickey out of you there. I don't know if he actually is that the good Manuka honey you dip it in, or what is it?
Yeah, I've been made a fool of by the viewers before. So keep the comments coming. Any of you on Ballyhale not getting their first free into the 28 and TJ's catching hand has been held and pushed all day, but got no frees. I'd say, I watched the game, and generally I try to I don't really pay too much attention to the ref unless he does something egregious. It didn't really occur to me too much. Did it occur to you when you were watching the game? Did you think there was anything?
I thought Fintan Burke at times was playing TJ's hand, but I thought he was doing it late enough not to get caught. And our Kilkenny fan here there that sent in the comment, some of your greatest hurlers of all time were the best men in the game to ever play the hand under a high ball. So I think if you do it late enough, you can kind of get away with it. But if you're holding the hand like as the ball is coming in, the key is probably just a little sudden movement right as the ball is there. But TJ still caught some great ball in the corner, I thought, particularly early on. It's funny, I don't think full forward suits TJ and just lobbing ball down on top of him. I don't think that's where he's best served. I think that angled ball, particularly where he's at the corner or centre forward or wing forward. And I have to say as well, if TJ is carrying a knock and he's still delivering what he did yesterday, like that's some testament to him.
I would, was it Sharp 2-1? I would like to see Watford win something finally. And do you know what the thing that occurs to me straight away? Obviously, he's talking about Ballygunner winning the final. Could that open the floodgates for Watford to win stuff at inter-county level? Because Limerick's coming. Was that somewhat off the back of maybe Napier being the first Limerick team in, what was it? They won it in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First Limerick team in 43 years to win an All-Ireland at Croke Park, wasn't it?
Or were they the first Limerick team ever? I think they were the first Limerick team ever, to be honest with you.
No, they were in club, but I mean like club or county.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe it strikes a bit of confidence into those players that were involved. Obviously, Dowling, the Caseys, Will O'Donoghue, but probably strikes a good bit of confidence into other lads as well. I think Mount Sion were in a final in the 80s. De La Salle were obviously in a final. But if Ballygunner can get over the line, you'd be probably rubbing your hands together as Liam Cattle, I'd say, going into the 2022 season.
Flash says, OurGame vindicated with the hurling power rankings. Well, that's not the right thing. That's Vincent O'Toole's book. Please go and buy that because that'll be a great old read. Let's have a look at the power rankings there. So we had Shamrocks 1, Shamrocks 1, Ballygunner 2, Thomas's 3, Schlockneil 4. Hey, look, we weren't too far wrong, were we?
No, we rarely get it right, so you have to give the old pat on the back when it does happen the odd time.
Joe Butler, it was a clear penalty. He pulled him back by the helmet, as could be seen from the camera angle at the back. Verney Stockholm syndrome on display. Not alone is Fennelly charging, he even pushed the defender over. It's only when he's on the way down that the defender fouls. Oh, I don't agree with that, Adrian. I do think he put the head in, and I think in some ways he initiated the contact. So that's why you might be able to give the free out. I just don't think he went in hard enough or long enough for it to be a free out. And the defender, I don't know what the defender is supposed to do, but he does end up with his arms around Fennelly's neck. So I think the referee has to give it.
I don't care whether they're wearing Kilkenny jerseys or Ballyhale jerseys.
You do have Stockholm syndrome.
I will favour the defender every day of the week because to me, hurling is a forwards game at the moment and it's refereed like a forwards game. But I just think like he gave himself no chance. He didn't try and jockey him or hold him up. He grabbed him around the head and pulled him to the ground. I have to say, I think this is a penalty every day of the week.
Verney is Kilkenny's Matt Murdoch. Is that one of those Marvel comic things? Who's Matt Murdoch again? Is that that's the blind superhero?
You have me there. I'm not a Marvel man.
Sean O'Sullivan, need to invest in a Hurley Humidor or Hurley Midor patent pending. I'm not really sure what you're saying there.
And Sean could be trying to catch you out again, to be honest.
Yeah. I was kind of reluctant when I saw Sean's name come up. Shane Cooney's experience could have been key at that moment. That is very true. Sharp 2-1. It happened with Castlegar in 1980. Galway went on to win an All-Ireland finally. There you go, yeah. And definite penalty, says Hurling Man, not up for debate. Shout outs to Owen Runa, Cole Ray and Camogues after their win in the Ulster Intermediate Championship quarter-final over Cavan's Lara. Cavan girls very good and have a couple of handy stick women. He's a defense lawyer in the comics whilst also being a superhero Daredevil. I had a feeling it was something like that. Just a reminder, show is brought to you by orgaretro.com. If you want to get these jerseys, that slick little Offaly one there, maybe this Kerry one, maybe your club's colours are like this Kerry one. There's a huge selection at orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off there. So, Michael, let's talk about Ballygunner beating Schlockneil in Parnell Park. So we've seen Ballygunner hammer teams. We've seen them win tight games against Lockmore. They look like that team on a mission. 219 to 17 points here. They saw the game through. Were you impressed with them?
Yeah, impressed to an extent, Shane. Again, it was probably far from ideal circumstances for them. Like Desi had very little room to operate at different times, but what do the best teams always do? They find some other way to win. He had been killing teams on the scoreboard, and he did by the end of it, he obviously ended up with 4 points, but he'd been killing teams on the scoreboard throughout this run and throughout the last couple of years. But they were able to find other players that were able to chip in. They were, they didn't have to rely on him. The sweeper was kind of sitting back, denying an awful lot of space for him. And it's smart. They moved him out half forward at different stages. I love to see that. That's why I love to see Joey Holden coming out centre back yesterday. He's not been, and I felt this, I'm not saying that I had much of an impact on a game at cornerback, but have you ever played a game where you're in a position where you can have very little say in proceedings, or the ball isn't coming near you and you just want to get in? Like Joey Holden's too good to leave full back when Thomas's weren't really threatening the goal. They threatened, like, apart from the Aina Burke shot, they didn't threaten the goal. So I thought it was brilliant to bring him out. Thought it was brilliant to bring Desi out. No more than I thought it was a very good idea to put Jamie Barron in corner forward this year against Limerick. At least you're trying something different. You're getting one of your better players into the game. So I thought they were smart there. But the tight confines definitely did suit Schlockneil, and they threw everything at it, despite getting off to a bad start. And they caused Ballygunner plenty of trouble. But again, Ballygunner seemed to have it in the muscle memory, that kind of Lockmore-Castleiney game where they can win these tight games now. And it's amazing what can happen to a team when they get over that sort of game. Now they've gotten over it again. They've gotten over the monkey of an All-Ireland semi-final. They're in a final. And I think the really appetising thing going into a final now is, where are Ballyhale best? Crow Park. Where would you envisage Ballygunner being best? Crow Park. So, like, it's set up for a brilliant game. But again, I don't want to be patronising to Schlockneil, but like, this was one of their best performances again in a semi-final. Most people, like, we talked about the tight pitch and that, a lot of people weren't sure whether that would materialise. But after getting off to a bad start, they were there right till the end, and they were probably the team that was even coming strongest at the end. But just that little buffer that Ballygunner had from the start, they were never able to really overhaul that.
That third quarter was where Ballygunner took over, and I think they were certainly 7, if not 8 points ahead heading into that final quarter of the game. And it was always going to be tough for Schlockneil. And look, this might sound like I'm saying that Ballygunner are masters of the dark arts. Well, they actually are, but a couple of times. And this is something that Cara O'Kane, journalist, referenced after the game about the lack of a black card rule, because a couple of times players were pulled down. Shane O'Sullivan pulled down one player as he was running in towards the 14. Pádraig Mahoney did it towards the very end as well. It's not a great look for the game, obviously, and Paddy Levy did a full rugby tackle on a Kilmallock player towards the end of their win. But like, I still come away from this game thinking Ballygunner, excellent team, got the job done. They've been up against different sort of challenges in different games. They were in a mudbat against Lockmore, and by hook or by crook they got through. They were up against a Kilmallock team that had looked really impressive in winning their Limerick title, and obviously how they dismantled Middleton. And they pulled them apart. They absolutely ripped them apart. So it seems like this Ballygunner team now is made for all weather. So Billy O'Keefe, he scored 2-3, including a free from one free. Desi Hutchinson scored 4. Kevin Mahoney was excellent. He scored 4. Peter Hogan had been quiet in a couple of games. I think that's something we touched on before, but he scored 3 here. And I think the difference between the teams was summed up a couple of times in how Peter Hogan stole the ball in tight little areas. So, like, I think what cost Schlockneil over the course of the game is the odd time, the speed of the Ballygunner hurling was just that bit more, and a Schlockneil man might spill a ball and it's taken off him, and then the ball is up over the bar at the other end, stuff like that. Or the time that Billy O'Keefe got his second goal, I can't remember which 2 defenders they were, but one defender tried to leave it for the sweeper, who was Gerald Bradley at that stage, to come and collect the ball. Both players half ran into each other. Kevin Mahoney was able to take the ball away and a lovely stick pass across. So it was just little things, little bits of sharpness cost them here and there. I don't know if that's something down to the fact that they don't have the same level of competition when they're playing within Derry and maybe even in the Ulster Championship. They do have good teams there, but it's just, do they have the regularity whereby you are forced to play at a higher level all the time? I could be wrong, but please get your comments in on that. Like, even the start of the game, Ballygunner scored 1-2 in jig time within 3 minutes. Schlockneil missed 1-2 within the first 3 minutes. So that sort of stuff, it does come home to roost. And you know what? I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but Peter Hogan set up a great chance for Desi Hutchinson early on in the game. He did a little stick pass across from more or less the end line out towards the 14. Desi was coming through and doubled at it. Now, the keeper made a great save, but I was just thinking, last time Schlockneil were in Parnell Park in an All-Ireland semi-final, do you remember Shane Dowling scored that incredible double ball from, was it the 21 or whatever? I was thinking, Schlockneil must be sick of coming up against these magicians. But you know what? Desi was under pressure in the sense that he had his man marker and he also had Gerald Bradley around for company. But some of the scores he got, he had to work so hard, which is a testament to what Schlockneil did. But like his hurling is just coming on and on and on. You know, the sharpness that probably would have dropped off through playing soccer for 5 or 6 years. My God, he's getting to a level now where I think it's going to be scary for inter-county defenders.
Definitely, yeah. As we said in the previous show, like maybe it was last week, like he's only getting better. That touch is getting tighter and tighter every year. As every month goes by, the ball is ending up in his hand quicker and quicker. Just on one of the things you were saying there about, you know, Ballygunner being able to get through these games now. Desi Hutchinson just said after, I think we're bringing a lot more to our game. We've had every type of game the last 4 matches, and we know ourselves we're able to do that. Maybe people on the outside didn't. Maybe we're starting to prove a few people wrong. So it's obviously they're using a bit of motivation, I'd say, within their camp, that people are saying they can't win a tight game. They don't know how to win a battle. They've won a couple of battles now. We know that they can win in, you know, beautiful free-flowing style, like they did against Kilmarnock, like they did against Roemore, like they did against Ballier. But now they can win that arm wrestle like they did against Lockmore and like they did yesterday against Schlockneil. And the fact that they have, it's like the situation Ballyhale have now. Like TJ, he was obviously exceptional yesterday, but he doesn't have to be exceptional every day because Adrian Mullen steps up, or Owen Cody steps up, or Colin Fenley is there. And now we have like Billy O'Keefe stepping up. I think Tomas McCarthy had it up. He's something like, has he 6 or 7 goals since he switched into corner forward? Like, he's another real potent threat. Pádraig Matney was struggling yesterday, but there were other guys to kind of step up around him. And I know you're probably going to bring it up in a minute. It's mad, the fact that I can't remember the last time in a really big game that they didn't bring on a sub. And it's not as if they don't have them to bring on. They have the powers to bring on. They've loads of really good players to bring off the bench. But I don't know what that was, and I'd love to know the rationale. I'm not sure if anybody asked Darragh Sullivan yesterday about it, but it's the first time in a long time I've seen that happen.
You'd be very upset if you were a sub in that situation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you would. Most players were actually doing pretty well, and like I know Pádraig Matney was probably a little bit quieter. He still did contribute and did a couple of beautiful stick passes up the field and won a couple of frees. But maybe he wasn't at his free-flowing best. I'm just checking there. Yeah, he scored 2 frees, so he didn't score from play. But you're not going to take him off. And Kevin Mahoney, who scored 4 points from play, like, he was brilliant. You're definitely not going to take off Desi Hutchinson. Billy O'Keefe scored 2-3. I thought the backs were pretty good. Paddy Levy was getting on an awful lot of ball and flicking it around the place as he does. Conor Sheehan scored a point after a few seconds in the first half and a few seconds in the second half. So I'm actually not entirely sure who you take off. There was a great battle between Barry Coughlin and Brendan Rodgers. Now, obviously, Rodgers had to contend with the extra man. Well, I suppose it was just Schlockneil had gone with a sweeper, so Philip Mahoney was allowed to operate as a spare man at the other end of the field. He got a couple of great points early on. He ended up with 4 from play altogether. But Coughlin, either side of half-time, he started turning them over once or twice, forcing Rodgers into shots that probably weren't really on. And that was kind of key because, you know, the way I talked about the third quarter being so decisive in this game. You know, if they had to just tag on another score or 2 in a game that they ultimately lost by 5, rather than drifting out to 8, if they had to keep it at 5, maybe the goal then heading down the last 10 minutes, that might have been the thing that brought them back into it. But it was interesting that even when Rodgers moved out to the half-forward line for a while, Coughlin went out and marked it. I think they were like, this is our man-marking job here. And It looked like Shane O'Sullivan kind of slipped back into the full back line for a little bit of time here.
Just on something you said there, Micheál McShane just said after, he just said, it's very obvious. We lost the game in the first 5 minutes of each half. It's inexplicable. I don't know. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody. So bitterly disappointed. We've had enough of glorious performance to end in defeat, and this is another one. We're just very, very down. And it's another All-Ireland semi-final performance, a really good performance, but they didn't get over the line, and that's going to be a bitter pill for them to swallow, no doubt about it.
Yeah, like they were like, I'm sure there's things they'd love to get back and do again, but like they were really, really good throughout this game, and that has to be a tough one to take. And I suppose if they're up against a team who wasn't as class as Ballygunner, they might have got through. I'll just run through a couple more comments here. A Sully 180. Desi got a point in the first half when himself and the defender ended up on the ground, and he got up and popped it off his left. Defender could do no more. Desi is different class. Brendan Rogers, some man, says John O'Sullivan. Richard Hogan, referring back to the Ballyhale performance, Ronan Corcoran usually gets 2 or 3 points from midfield. If Owen Cody scores a goal in the first minute, the game changes completely. Great goal chance for Aina Burke, but Dean Mason made him make a decision. Let me see, Sean O'Sullivan, I think it was Shefflin, but definitely Kilkenny hurler was doing a doc on TG Cahir and said he kept his hurley in the bathroom so to keep the right level of moisture, which is interesting. I'd normally leave it in the hallway so that there's a bit of cool air there. You just don't want the heat in the house getting to it. Let's see, Pewell 74. I would throw my hurleys out in the lawn for a few days and change them over every day to add a bit of weight on them and stop them breaking. Schlockneil more interested in off the ball stuff. Bradley was a disgrace, says Alan O'Brien. I don't know if that's true. I think they were getting stuck in, and you kind of have to when you have a team with the class of Ballygunner, but I certainly wouldn't call them a disgrace. Darren Nestor, bought a couple of hurleys for my niece, and the hurley maker told her to rub them in the morning and in the morning and evening dew so they don't dry out. Mystical, might have been a magical hurley maker. It was funny to see the forwards rotate into the back so he could take yellows the last 5 minutes. As Joseph O'Hanlon says, I'm going to sign up to Patreon as analysis. In particular, Verney's knowledge of the game in minute details is remarkable. Wow, that's a kick in the bum for me.
I don't know about that. See, the thing is, the worse you are at hurling, the more you have to look into the minute details to try and get those percentages. So that
should put us neck and neck.
Well, to be fair, yeah, that's probably true, yeah. But that's the only reason maybe things are looked into a bit more in minute detail than maybe other people. The gifted people don't have to analyze it as much.
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else we'd like to say about this game? I mean, it's obviously going to be an unbelievable final, and we'll be teeing that up and looking at matchups and the whole lot the closer we get to the game. But is there anything else that's worth saying about this game? I mean, like the black card thing. Do you see this being sped up now? Cara O'Kane mentioned it.
I don't know, to be honest. It was Napirshig and Schlockneil in 2018, where I think it was Carol McCaig talked about a black card in the aftermath because there was a big decision that they feel went against them. We're 4 years on. It's obviously still been talked about, but I suppose if you were Fintan Burke yesterday, you probably thought you were doing the right thing, as Sean Brennan says, and TJ was able to put it in there. It's funny, TJ would have done very well to work a goal from that position. Like, he wasn't probably going to go around Fintan Burke. He probably would have put it across into a congested square, whereas you gave him a free shot maybe at goal. So I'm not so sure, but I don't know. I think as hurling folk, we need to be an awful lot smarter about some of the things that we do, because we're going to get rules enforced that we don't really want if this is, seen regularly in big games.
Yeah. Talaman GA, underperforming Ballyhale, Ballygunner peaking. Who wins? Look, I think we need to keep it in the chamber for now. I wouldn't be able to. I need a lot of time to sit down, figure this one out, look at the minute details, and decide. Right, the All-Ireland Intermediate Club finals run over the weekend. Also, semi-finals, I should say. Naas beat Turin 18 points to 13, and Kilmoyley beat Banagher of Derry 215 to 112. So we're looking at Kildare against Kerry sides at Croke Park in the All-Ireland final. Turin started very, very well, and I think they went 3 or 4 up, but Naas were level by the water break, and from then on they kind of kicked on. Richie Hogan lorded it apparently at full back. Ross Kelly very good. Sean Gainey also on the half back line. They were excellent. Simon Lacey in midfield, and then Jack Sheridan up front. I think he scored maybe half the points that Naas got in that game. So, I mean, do you think that there's any advantage for Naas here in the fact that a few of their players have now played in Croke Park not so long ago in that Leinster Club football final, and they're going to be back there pretty soon again?
Yeah, I think this was a big win for Naas. I fancied them to win, but 7 days after winning, their first provincial title, and they obviously celebrated after because Tom Mullally said as much, and you want to enjoy the successes, but to be able to back it up, a week later against, maybe you could say Turin had to wait too long to be playing a game. They were waiting probably the guts of a month since they won Connacht, whereas maybe you could say Naas were road tested from the week before. But this was a good win for them. They did what they had to do and just kind of ground them out in the wind up. Jack Sheridan, worrying another county, he'd be talked about, regularly. He's a brilliant attacker. I think he got a couple of goals. He got a couple of goals against Ireland Glenbrine in the Leinster final. He backs it up nearly every day. He's kind of their marquee man up front, and then you have Brian Byrne and James Burke and a few others, Cottle Dowling and a few others chipping in. But it definitely sets it up for the most novel of finals anyway, definitely. Yeah, like, who would have predicted you're going to have a Kerry and a Kildare team in an All-Ireland final? And then obviously Kerry play Kildare in the first round of the Football League next week, don't they? With Jack O'Connor going back to the Kerry team or the Kildare team that he managed for the last 2 years. So this kind of rivalry between the two counties is going to carry for a couple of weeks anyway.
Joe Butler says third semi-final loss in the intermediate grade for Turin. Pity. But Naas are one of these common teams, and we've talked before, maybe they should now be, or pretty soon be, operating at Leinster Senior Club Championship. So
they have the age profile for it as well, Shane, to be fair. Like the average age, you're probably looking at mid-20s. Yeah, Brian Byrne, James Burke, Jack Sheridan, Simon Lacey, those guys are all around the mid-20s. So I think they're probably going to be coming in, like, the way sometimes a team can get promoted and they could be over the top, and there's another generation coming maybe that's maybe not as strong as what came before, and they can't fight it out at that level. Whereas, like, it wouldn't be inconceivable to think in 4 or 5 years that Naas are in around semi-finals potentially at senior level.
Well, with the population that Patrick Hickey has mentioned there's a lot to work with. And do you know what they often say? I'd rather a good big player than a good small player. The likes of James Burke and a couple of more of those players, they're big physical players that wouldn't be in any way daunted by playing. I mean, if they've gone that far in the Leinster club football, and obviously it's a very different group of players between the two panels, they're able to produce big players too, which definitely helps when you're playing in those sort of games. Now, Kilmiley, they got the job done against Banagher. Now, I see a few tweets saying that there was, words traded, but look, I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But from Kilmiley's point of view, they've beaten a Tip side, a Waterford side, and a Cork side along the way to get here. And as Vincent O'Toole tweeted last night, 35 years after captaining Cork's St. Finbars in Croke Park to All-Ireland Senior Club football glory, John Myler will be back there to manage Kerry's Kilmiley in an All-Ireland Intermediate Club hurling final. Not bad going.
There's no end to him, in fairness. And it's mad. And Fintan definitely picked the right time to be doing a book about the Milers, because, like, John was maybe, he mightn't have been front and center at the time, and all of a sudden he explodes back into the public consciousness again and gets back to Croke Park again. I'd say he has some yarns to tell about his life in hurling, and if he's able to manufacture an All-Ireland win for a Kerry team in Croke Park, I'd say that'll be right up there with among the biggest achievements and the most noble things he's ever done throughout a crazy career, throughout his playing career and his managerial career.
Yeah, actually, if you do want some of those stories, I did like a full 2-part run through his career with John Myler before. His days managing Kerry when they beat Waterford, his days playing with all the legends, having Doug Howlett involved with Cork, you name it, it's there. The only blight for Kilmiley is that they, in injury time, there was a straight red card to Adrian Royal, so he might be out of the final now. That's going to be on in early February.
Imagine missing it. Imagine not being...
The game is won, like, and you get red carded.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see whether they appeal that, the amount of them that are appealed, and that they get rescinded or they get back for the game, is the percentages are staggeringly high. So I'd imagine they'll be trying to put a case together there. They might never be in an All-Ireland final again, so I'm sure they'll do everything they can to have everybody available.
Yeah, Maurice O'Connor scored 2-1. Daniel Collins scored 9.6 of those were frees. Jordan Brick, he stepped up with 4 points also. On the other side for Banagher, Tiernan McCluskey, he scored 4 points, and Liam Owen Campbell did the same. Stephen McCluskey scored 1-2. So that's the end of Banagher's great season there, and it's going to be Kilmiley against Naas in the final one to look forward to. Now, let's jump on to the junior All-Ireland Club semi-finals. Ballygiblin of Cork battered Full and Gales, really, 420 to 12 points. Colin English, Tipperary's under-21 captain from 2018, he got a goal early on. It was 112 to a point at half-time, and more late goals from English, Sean O'Sullivan and Adam Dunnigan rounded it off. Mooncoin, they beat Salt Hill and Knocknacarra. And when I saw that, I just thought, what a rough week for Donal O'Shea, the now Galway senior. Obviously, they were battered by 19 points last weekend by Dublin in a Galway jersey, then losing for UCD against NUIG during the week by 3 points. and then a 226 to 11-point defeat here. That's a rough week for any young lad.
That's a tough week to take now, all within 7 days. At least he has a chance to bounce back with Fitzgibbon during the week again with UCD, but it's tough going. I didn't expect both semi-finals to be as comprehensive as that. Fancy Ballygiblin to come through with a bit to spare, but I think the Colin English one is really interesting. It's not every day of the week you see a high profile underage player or any player in Tipperary transferring anywhere near their bitter rivals in Cork. So it'd be interesting to get the backstory there.
Yeah, and also to go to a junior club. You'd think, if you were transferring, it'd be unlikely. So there must be some sort of connection or something like that. Maybe one of our viewers has a bit of insight on that. And I think Mooncoin, they'll be hoping to make amends for their last All-Ireland final appearance, which was in 2017, when they lost to Cork's Mayfield by a point. So it'll be a Cork versus Kilkenny final there. A bit more of a traditional sound to that than we're going to see in the intermediate, where it's a really novel final, Kerry and Kildare. So that'll be great to watch. The Walsh Cup, we're going to see a final between Wexford and Dublin. Dublin made it 3 wins for 3 with a 223 to 120 win over Offaly. That was down in the good field in Borough, wasn't it?
They don't get much better.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from an Offaly point of view, and you can maybe talk a little bit more about these players, but I heard that John Murphy was quite good, very lively. Jason Sampson was at full forward, he was good. And while Owen O'Donnell probably did win that battle, that he was pushed pretty hard by him. Owen Cahill was very, very good. And that just, when I'm talking to people who were at the game, just that big Offaly, a team of big men, they're happy to work it through the lines, and they got a lot of joy out of that. Now, Fennelly did say afterwards, Michael Fennelly, Dublin, to be fair, have a nice brand and style of hurling. I've admired them for the last few weeks watching them play, because they seem to be better this year than they were the last few years. But maybe we could have delivered it a bit earlier today. Maybe we took that one pass too much, but they're trying to do the right thing, which is important. And I think for a manager, you get annoyed if you see players going around throwing the ball up and get blocked down in silly situations instead of giving a handy hand pass out the back door. If he's talking about his team doing the right thing and just trying to find that balance of delivering it just a little bit earlier, I mean, that is kind of what you want, that your team is attempting to enact what the manager wants.
Yeah, and the first year Fennelly came in, I was probably a bit skeptical in that I thought they were overplaying the ball, and it was too many passes, and it was just, if it was 4 passes when it should have been 3 or 2, it's an awful lot crisper now, and that's the way hurling is played at the elite inter-county level. I'm not saying we're anything like Limerick, but we're trying to play that style, and it's trying to play crisp, trying to play through the lines, trying to play through triangles and have runners coming everywhere. This was another good performance, particularly in the first half. Maybe tailed off a small bit in the second half. Donald Burke's introduction probably turned the game maybe in Dublin's favour. I'd see in some papers he got man of the match even though he came off the bench. That was kind of fairly telling of the impact that he had. But again, the one word I'll come back to at Offaly is consistency, and they're performing consistently well, even throughout the Walsh Cup, even throughout last year. If they could beat teams 10 or 15 points, they'd beat them 20 points. They were really, really competitive with Dublin yesterday. Again, that was a big step up from Galway the first day, and an even bigger step up from Antrim the last day. So that's a good sign going into it, a really difficult Division 1A campaign. There's no, on paper, you wouldn't say there's a tie that Offaly can obviously win. There's no leash in Division 1B where both teams would fancy their chances kind of going into that game. They have 5 really, really tough games, but they're fairly well road tested now at this stage. Played a strong team the first day, gave lads maybe more of an opportunity the second day. Pretty strong team again yesterday, and now they've 2 weeks 2 weeks before they open their league. So I'd be happy with where we're going. You're not going to get there. You're not going to get there straight away. It's not going to be today or tomorrow that you're going to get there. But the age profile of the team is very young. I would have wondered with some of the lads that came in whether they'd be able to cut it at inter-county level. But there's a lot of lads, a lot of new faces, really putting their hand up. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be tough in the league. It's going to be really, really tough. But if you could get that consistent level of performance where you're not shipping 4 or 5 goals and you're getting in around 19, 20 points at least against these teams that are really battling at the top table, that's all you can hope for. And then going into the Joe McDonagh, which you don't want to be coming in with heavy defeats, and I don't think they will. I think they'll I think they'll represent themselves well throughout the league. They mightn't get a win in 1A, but they'll be very competitive.
Yeah, I get that sense too, because I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Offaly were operating completely beneath themselves for so many years. There's always been talent there. It's just trying to get belief into them, get the S&C into them, get a style of play into them. There might be a bad shellacking somewhere along the line in Division 1A, but I think for the most part, they'll be relatively competitive. Now, from a Dublin point of view, it does very much seem like they're building a serious panel here. John Bellew is somebody who played very well in this game, the Lucan man, and we've seen him in a couple of games now. He was quite good against Galway also. Rian McBride is one of these guys who seems to be mature and just coming to the boil nicely at this stage of his career. He got another goal here. He was very good against what was a pretty fallow Galway challenge last weekend. Danny Sutcliffe made his first performance of the season. If he can play like how he did at times last year, I mean, let's not forget that Dublin were robbed of 4 players in that Leinster final last year because of COVID. We'll be hoping that doesn't happen this time. Donald Burke scored 3 from play and 4 place balls when he came on. Like, the depth is beginning to grow, and that's something that that Matty Kenny talked about. Like, they were down 113 to 1-9 at half time and ended up winning by 6. So that obviously tells you of a massive turnaround in the second half. And he said that was our aim in terms of building the panel, that everyone is contributing. They're happier players when they know they can come on and make an impact. As we move on in the year, we'll have to see what our strongest 15 is. But now that we know, that to get on to 26 alone is very competitive. That's what we want. That's what we like. We know that anyone comes off the bench can deliver for this team, which you wouldn't have always said. Like, you definitely wouldn't have always said that. But to me, like, some of those players that were hanging around for a few years are really now starting to step up. Rian McBride, I think Fergal Whiteley's looking good. Ronan Hayes obviously maturing all the time here. He scored 1-2 in this game. And just from an Offaly point of view, your man Owen Cahill scored 11-3 of those from play, and Brian Dignan stepped up with a goal also. Let's talk about Wexford now. So they just about got through against after a performance against Kilkenny here. Do you think that Darragh Egan is going to be happy enough with that? It was a bit of an epic draw, 225 apiece here against Kilkenny. I suppose he doesn't want to get his Wexford team used to losing to Kilkenny. He wants to keep on top.
Well, they were well up. They were well up midway through the second half, and then relinquished their lead. And Conor MacDonald, we've talked about his hand before. He catches and strikes a ball like nearly in the same instance. We know how good he is in the air. He comes down, he's barely down, he's got the ball over the bar, and the draw actually put them through. I think was it Massey Keown had a goal chance near the end to put it to bed for Kilkenny, and that would have booked. He actually, if he put the ball over the bar, they would have been through to the final. But there was lots of the Wexford probably mix the good with the bad at times. But again, we're seeing loads of new names. Conal Flood hit over 3 or 4 yesterday. MacDonald, I think, ended up with 6. From a Kilkenny point of view, Cian Kenny was brilliant for Kilkenny. He's probably one of the best players on the pitch. We've seen him with the Village in recent years. He's probably not physically there yet for the cut and thrust of inter-county hurling in the middle of the summer, but he's getting there. It was interesting to see Pádraig Walsh at centre forward as well. I don't know if that's...
Remember, he was wing forward back in around 2014 or 15 when he was first coming on the scene.
Yeah, I know, but it is a big departure to say that he's going to go from centre back to centre forward. I don't know if that was more to do with the forwards that were available to Cody on a given day. It could also be like you're missing Adrian Mullen, you're missing TJ, you're missing Owen Cody. Do you need to put one of your better backs up into the forward? It's probably smart from Cody. Like, Pádraig Walsh could end up playing a bit of the league there just because they're going to be missing, probably half their forward line at least. So that might make sense, and it was probably a good idea to put him up there the other day. He's obviously not going to be, he's not going to fit in as a natural straight away, but it's going to be interesting to see if he plays there. There was a couple of other players. Oisin Foley, younger brother of Paddy, was good. Showed glimpses from the highlights I saw that he can cut it at that level as well. But I think the big thing from Darragh Egan's point of view is that he's trying to blood as many players as he possibly can. I think he's looking at it as a longer term project. That's not to say they're not going to be going gung-ho for 2022. They will. But I think he knows for the development of Wexford hurling over the next few years, he needs to get new players in. It's probably the one criticism of Davies' reign is that not enough players were brought through, that it was generally the same 17 or 18 players. Definitely looks like Darragh Egan has ripped up that script, and these guys are going to get their chances under him. That's what it looks like anyway.
Yeah, a week beforehand, or was it 2 weeks beforehand, you'd seen Kilkenny, a third string team, more or less, or a developmental type team, playing against Laois and winning that game well. I'm just looking through the team here, and there's definitely a lot of experimentation here. A half back line of James Maher, who scored a point, Hugh Lawler centre back, and Killian Buckley back in there wing back. Keane Kenny scored 8 points from midfield, 4 of those from frees. Interesting to see
Doesn't
him
even take frees for his club.
yeah, like James Bergen also knocked over 6. Keane Kenny was midfield with Michael Carey, a guy of immense pace, and interesting to see his trajectory this year. Joe Butler comments about Pádraig Walsh. Now, the match report I'm looking at here, he's actually named at wing forward. Maybe he was wearing 11, or maybe just someone else decided he played more often at centre forward. But he says Pádraig Walsh was out of it for until the last 10 minutes. He did score 1-1. Owen O'Shea was also in the half forward line. He scored a point. John Donnelly scored a point. And then the full forward line of James Bergen, Martin Keown, Mossy Keown, and Chris Bulger, who scored 1-1. Wally Walsh came on, so did Robbie Buckley, David Blanchfield, and Colin Prenderville. So I suppose because the Ballyhale lads are so central to the team, and they're no longer, or they're not involved at the moment, I suppose he's kind of forced into picking a very experimental team. I wonder how many of these will be seen in the height of summer. And not only that, can they win that 3 in a row in Leinster?
Yeah, it's funny that all the lads, the majority of lads that impressed the last day against Laois were all involved again with a lot of experienced faces back in. Chris Bulger was an interesting one. He was taken off at half time against Laois and got another chance on Saturday and took it to a fair extent anyway. He finished his goal. It was an absolute rocket of a goal. I think Cody be happy with he's never happy unless they're winning every game, but 3 to 4 wins, I'd say, from Division 1B would be big for them. Joe Butler says Waddy made a difference when he came on. He did. He scored a monster of a point from about 100 yards out the sideline and that favoured kind of right-hand side. But they're going to be like how Cody uses TJ and Adrian Mullen, these lads, when they come back, is going to be interesting as well, because it's probably going to be, halfway during the league. He wants them to be ripe for the summer. You can't take them back too early and risk them kind of burning out as well. So I'd say he's probably planning for the bulk of the league without the Ballyhale lads, and maybe the last round, maybe if they got to the final stages, bring them back in around that stage, because he kind of does have to play the long game with them. But there's definitely signs that a couple of lads have put their hands up. David Blanchfield definitely been one, and Colin Prenderville was another. He was decent when he came in the last day as well. So definitely signed it to a few more names there, but this time of the year, like I don't know if we see those guys making an impact for Kilkenny, really until 2023, 2024. That's just my opinion, because it takes a long time to settle in at county level.
I'm very curious to see if Kevin Foley plays in the forwards now as the year goes on. I know we talk about Pádraig Walsh going the other end of the field. I mean, Kevin Foley would have been centre forward for the under-21s, which is quite a few years ago at this stage, but will he be moved back up the field or even in midfield? Now, in the match report I'm looking at here, he's named in the half forward line at centre forward. So will he go up there? So just a reminder, brought to you by OurGaretro.com. If you want this jersey, that jersey, any that they have in the range, go to OurGaretro.com, use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. Also, if you want to get the Thursday show, it's going to be on Patreon only moving forward. So it's a $5 per month, which works out more or less 50 cents per show over the course of the year. So not too much of a heavy investment there. I think the main thing is just to go on the site and sign up. I don't think the outlay would bother people too much there. So that's a great way to support the channel if you do want to watch those shows. And there's a comment in here. I just want to find it. Martin Furlong. Lads, is there a better rivalry in terms of game quality than Wexford and Kilkenny at the moment? They can't help themselves but play out classics. And I mean, that is going back to Walsh Cup stuff and the whole lot, even going back to Davies' first game in charge.
The 65 competition at the end of the Walsh Cup final, the last round of the round robin that ended in a draw in Wexford Park. They've had some amount of draws in recent years, in fairness, and there's never been more than a score usually between them. The extra time in Croke Park last year, there's been absolute belters. There is literally a puck of the ball between them, probably from 2017 onwards. And I'd imagine I had a Wexford fella onto me on Twitter. He's marooned in Kilkenny. And he said he's marooned in Kilkenny and has been there a long time. But he said the wheel at least turned in 2017 and 2019. He was enduring a lot of tough years before that. But at least from a Wexford point of view, you're not going getting hiding when you're playing Kilkenny now. They've been outrageously competitive with them. And they will be this year as well. And just chatting to Darragh Egan a couple of weeks ago, like, they realise that they're mid-table in Leinster at the moment. Kilkenny are the standard bearers in Leinster, but there's it's only small margins that takes you from mid-table to being Leinster champions, as Wexford saw in 2019. So only a couple of small things have to click, and anybody could read it's not going to be inconceivable to think that, Dublin, Wexford, Kilkenny or Galway could win Leinster this year. It is quite open, whereas you're looking at Munster and you're thinking, even I was down there in Ennis yesterday and thinking this could be a closed shop. Munster, let alone at All-Ireland level.
Yeah, there is that concern with Munster, no doubt about it. What about for the Wexford hurlers? Gordon Darcy is apparently involved. Like Billy Walsh, the famous boxing coach, so he's involved. And now Gordon Darcy, another Wexford native, somebody very high achieving, he's involved too. And I think he appeared at Wexford Park on Saturday, just Saturday gone. So, I mean, tangibly, I'm not sure what's going to add to it, but having local legends involved, there's probably no harm to it.
No, it's definitely no harm. You obviously have another really high-achieving Wexford native. I think he's from Ferns. You're looking at a guy with crazy amount of Irish international caps, Heineken Cup wins with Leinster, and obviously he was a Lion as well. What exactly his role will be, I think Darragh Egan said it was a lot to do with match day. I'll just read out a couple of quotes he said on it. Gordon will be working with the players on match days, while he will also be talking with players during the week. He has such huge experience from his own career, playing at the highest level for both Leinster and Ireland, not to mention the Lions. He is used to having played on the big stage, so we'll be dipping into all of his experience. The likes of Gordon coming in to join up with Billy Walsh. He's a proud Wexford man, so it's very positive to have him on board. I will myself also be dipping into Gordon's experience. There is so much one can learn from his experiences. To see Gordon come in and be prepared to help should be a great boost to the players. We would look forward to working with him. Like, you can't argue with the backroom team that Darragh Egan has assembled. He's all the hurling expertise, we'll say, with Willie Cleary and Niall Corcoran and himself. Then he has the likes of Billy. He has Shane McCormack, the sprint coach, who works with Phil Healy, and I think was working with Tipperary the last 3 years. He's obviously an All-Ireland winner as well, having worked with them in 2019. So I think, like, the backroom team and having really good guides and really good sounding boards around you is so important. And Darragh doesn't look like he's taking any chances his first year anyway. He's got some serious expertise to call on there. And crucially, I think as well, the fact that they're Wexford in Billy Walsh and Gordon Darcy, to me, that's nearly the biggest thing about it. Whatever, it's because they have that raw passion for their county, regardless, and they would have been following them closely. If you're bringing in some outsider who doesn't really have an affiliation with the county, GA people don't tend to recognise that as much. But they're staunch Wexford men, and I think that's huge. That's a huge benefit. You
decided to tip over to Darver in County Louth to watch Galway beat Antrim the other day. Can't be too many big name hurling matches going on there, but I suppose Galway got back on track after last weekend's heavy beating at the hands of Dublin. A week on, I suppose, from beating Offaly by a couple of goals in that Walsh Cup game. What sort of team did Galway have out, and were you impressed here?
Yeah, decent sprinkling, Shane. Éanna Murphy in goals, Dottie Burke was full back, Pádraig Mannion centre back, Joe Cooney midfield, Cotton Mannion wing forward, Niall Burke centre forward, Conor Whelan was playing inside. So you're looking at 7 or 8 probably regulars. And I've said this before, I think it's nice and I think Henry mentioned it after, it's nice for Declan Cronin playing cornerback and Jack Grealish the other corner to have Dottie Burke full back beside you. Same for Tiernan Killeen and Mark Gill, the 2 wing backs, to have Pádraig Mannion beside you in the middle. I think that's it's kind of comforting and breeds a bit of confidence into you. Galway were only okay here, I have to say, and I kind of get the feeling looking at them that it could be a bit like Shane O'Neill's first year with Galway, where it's a bit of a slow burner. I don't expect them to be lighting it up during the league. I think some of their big name players look like they probably have a bit of work to do, sharpness wise and maybe fitness wise. That's only natural at this time of the year, especially when a new manager is coming in. They've not been smart. Henry knows what he's going to get from Dottie Burke. He knows what he's going to get from Pádraig Mannion and these lads in the cut and thrust of a championship match. So he's looking at a lot of other faces of lads that impressed. Those new faces, John Fleming was brilliant again. Scored 1-3. And the one thing I have to say about him is, I mean this is a compliment in the best way, he's an absolute pig for work, and a pig for hardship. He loves getting stuck in. He took some great scores, particularly when they were playing against the Breeze, and he took his goal really well too.
Remember you said that we were talking about him playing so well for NUG the other night, and you were like, he's good on both sides, but he's quite favourable to one side. Was that something that you also noticed again?
No, not really, actually, no. Maybe it was because he had more time in the ball the other night. He got a couple of scores off his right the other day. He's definitely one, I think, we mightn't be looking at him, championship this year as in starting, but I think we'll definitely be looking at him over the next couple of years. There's this fella, he must be from Galway, he had a tweet out the other night during the Fitzgibbon Cup match, and he just said the John Fleming hype is real. So there's obviously a bit of hype about him locally, but he's definitely backing it up at the moment. Tom Monaghan had some kind of flashes of good things as well. Gavin Lee, who's very young, was playing corner forward, and he's not the biggest fella, but he has a good paw on him, and he can be a bit of an outball, which you wouldn't normally say about a corner forward. Thought he was quite good in the air. There was actually a brilliant block. Stephen Rooney came on for Antrim near the end. Conor Whelan had done all the hard work and was through on goal, and Stephen Rooney came out of nowhere. I don't know if it'll be on camera anywhere, and got this last-ditch block, which was brilliant. And it was one of many good things that Antrim did throughout the day. Neil McManus was very good. Like, even though he'd probably admitted himself that when you get over 30, your legs are maybe on the way in a small bit, but like the cuteness upstairs, he set up some amount of scores from just using the ball very cleverly, not taking the ball into the tackle too much. He had a good goal chance early on. He created it from a lovely dummy hand pass. They missed that, unfortunately. Michael Bradley missed a goal chance as well that they probably just needed to take to be right on Galway's tail. But I think it was 123 to 117 in the wind up. A good afternoon's work from Antrim. I wouldn't be blown away by Galway at the moment. And I said I don't think they'll be pulling up trees throughout the league. But do they really want to be as well? I think you'll see them. I think the best time to judge them is probably around round 4, round 5 of the league, when a lot of the frontliners have got a lot of action.
Yeah, I saw a clip of the Antrim goal on the Antrim Twitter account. Definitely 3 catches by the man who assisted the ball in, because I watched it a couple of times. The only thing is, a pound of flesh was taken out of an Antrim man by the Galway defence on the way through. So, maybe it evened out a little bit. Just a reminder, there's also a competition website out there, win4clubandyou.com. So win4clubandyou.com. It's a great place where you can enter competitions like, for example, Man United against Liverpool. Buy a raffle ticket there. If you win that, you can also nominate your club, a club of your choosing, to win a prize also. So it's a great chance to win for your club and you, hence win4clubandyou.com. And it's you, the letter, rather than YOU at the end of that. So the Munster Hurling League final, you were down at that in Ennis, 27 points to 18. And I was listening to some of the commentary. By the way, Neil McManus was doing live commentary on RTE on Sunday for the Ballygunner-Slaughtneil game. So he had a busy all weekend. But Clare seemed to start off the game okay. I think they were ahead, and then there seemed to be a bit of a Limerick takeover.
Yeah, it was great to see. There was 8,000 people in Ennis, and just a really good atmosphere. And when the referee delays ever so slightly to throw in the ball from the throw-in, and all of a sudden lads are flying in on top of each other. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Will O'Donoghue and Jack Brown both ended up with yellows before the game had even started.
Wouldn't be like either of them.
No, and I thought there was going to be serious kind of bite to it, particularly when Clare got off to a lovely start. Interestingly, the first 5 scores were all got by David Reedy. 3 from Clare, 2 from Limerick. An absolute disaster from a journalist point of view. You had to be so careful when you were totting up the scores. But Clare were 3-1 up, and then Limerick had just settled into their stride totally, hit the next 5 in a row. Colin Coughlin really looks like he could make a serious charge for a spot wing back this year. It's going to be so hard to break
into. He's about 19, is he?
Yeah. He's so big, so strong. Must have caught 4 puck-outs. Similar to Dermot Burns as well, is able to score from 100 yards, particularly off that sweet kind of left side. He hit 2 lovely points, actually back-to-back in the 9th and 10th minutes. He was one that showed up particularly well. Darren O'Connell showed up very well in the corner as well. Even though interesting, he always wants to take the touch, even if the ball is around here. And he got away with it yesterday, but I'd imagine Paul Kinnerk and Alan Cunningham and these boys will be hammered into him that he needs to get the ball in his hand. And just the great cornerbacks, like it'll happen a couple of times in training where Sean Finn will pick his pocket and he'll realise that he's going to have to catch the ball rather than taking that touch. Holds the hurl really, really short, actually, on the touch. It's kind of a unique one, but he was another one that showed up well with 3 points. Brian O'Grady, midfield, I thought showed up really well too. Got through a mountain of work and is really, really fast, particularly in possession. Ronan Conley was good at centre back. He's only about 5'10", I'd say. He wouldn't be your prototype 6'2", 6'3", Lord and high ball in the air, but he's so good in possession. Thought he was really, really good. Funny enough, I thought even with the Limerick newcomers, you could see a clear difference between the conditioning levels between them and the Clare guys. Can
I introduce a comment based on what you're saying there? So Patrick Hickey says, you can see why Clare supporters were not happy with the lack of S&C at underage. It was easy to see why Clare younger players versus Limerick younger players. I mean, obviously, if you see some of the pictures of the Centre of Excellence in Caherlohan in the past couple of years that the Sunday Times did, I mean, that kind of highlights the difference when you consider that, UL are doing, Limerick and, having availing of the likes of UL, they're doing it the right way.
Well, I put it to you this way. Cottle O'Neill, who only broke onto the senior squad last year, you might have thought, maybe looking at that, he wasn't that impressive, but a couple of things he did were really impressive. Didn't shoot the lights out, scoring points or anything like that. He got 1 point, but a couple of times he was able to take on the ball and go through the tackle or be fouled. And really, should he be able to do that at 19? Probably not, but he's obviously seriously well conditioned. Another guy that was doing that as well would have been, Paddy O'Loughlin's big as well. Anyway, even Ronan Conley, for a small fella, was doing that, was able to break the tackle.
Colin Coughlin probably was he?
He did that. He did that regularly. Brian O'Grady, even for a small fella, was able to do that as well. Even Adam English came on, like his first year on the Limerick panel. I was saying to you off air, he tried to strike a point over the shoulder at one stage and got blocked down. I'd say that'll kind of be hammered out of him as well, but he still got 2 lovely points. And in the best way possible, he looks like he's all there. He really looks like he's all there, even though he's only a young fella, loads of skill. But the Limerick lads were able to break those tackles and were able to break lines. It's interesting to see Gearóid Hegarty playing. The amount of frees he draws on him, he's getting up into that Colin Fennerly, Shane O'Donnell category. If lads think he's going to go around him, he's just fouled, or he leans the body in and maybe draws the foul as well. But probably a bit of an eye opener for Clare. They really struggled to create scoring chances. I made it 28 scoring chances, or was it 29? The double scoring chances of Clare had in the first half anyway. Yeah. Limerick hit 11 wides, 28 it was, 11 wides, 17 points. Clare had 14 and hit 9 points, but they really suffocated out of the game.
And Patrick Hickey adds, any kid in Limerick at underage on development squads have access to S&C and proper nutrition advice. So, do you know what? We're going to compare and contrast Brian Cody's first, I think it's 6 seasons at this stage for John Kiley. Just compare and contrast them in the same length of time. So John Kiley now has 11 trophies in 6 seasons. Now, we're including your pre-season competitions here, whether it's the Munster Hurling League and the different names that has had against, the likes of the Walsh Cup, etc. for Brian Cody. Now, he's had 45 trophies in 24 seasons, but going into just their first 6 seasons, overall, actually, just if you were to go pro rata, John Kiley has 1.8 trophies per season. Brian Cody, in the entirety of his career, has 1.875. And it does feel like, Limerick have a little bit more to win here. Now, can they be continue winning at this rate is the thing.
Yeah, it's mad the correlation between the two of them, but they do. I definitely think Kiley has that Cody mantra of we will win everything we can possibly win, and they're definitely making a fair fist of that. Be interesting. I think they wrote off the league last year, after, and I think it was smart. They wrote off the league. They finished their All-Ireland campaign in 2020 on the 13th of December, so they made the conscious decision that they were coming back late. And the league was going to be, judge us on our last couple of games, and the All-Ireland is all that matters. It's probably different this year, and it looks like, even though, I think Gearóid Hegarty was only properly back in training about 10 days with Limerick, and he looked like he was jumping out of his skin yesterday. Interesting as well to see what makes Limerick tick. The Limerick bench were behind me, and they'll shout and roar and clap for good points, but it's all about turnovers. It's all about pressurising the man with the ball. Will O'Donoghue did a full-blown All-Ireland final fist bump after basically forcing one of the Clare players into over-carrying. Like that's what they enjoy nearly the most. That's what they get satisfaction out of, and it kills other teams. And that's what they do. They allow you to nearly take your 4 steps, then they hit you, and then you're under serious pressure and can't get away from them. But it was just amazing to see that hunger from, someone like him who's, he's been there 4 or 5 years now at the elite level, and he still has that hunger, which is a great sign for Limerick and a great sign probably for his performances for the year ahead as well.
Yeah, and we know that the water breaks, it just looks like they're going to be going right before the start of the league.
Thank God.
A great step. I mean, I think, was it that Gaelic Stats put out something that the average break for a water break was over 2 minutes when it's supposed to be a minute? And anyway, it should be about 20 seconds. But John Kiley was asked about the water breaks going, and he says, well, by all accounts, it's going to be a major setback to us. So we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Tongue in cheek.
But that is tongue in cheek. But I mean, they are bringing out a tactics board. They are resetting everything. They are able to talk to players, get that clarity. And for us supporters, a game taking on a life of its own and getting that unbelievable momentum that makes GA both codes so good. I don't want that stopped by somebody bringing out a little board and getting the instructions out there. That's just not what I want to see.
No, it's probably not what many people want to see, but it's using the situation to your advantage and using it as a coaching timeout. And particularly like Kylie was kind of saying about the Mayor Forna thing, and I do think this is something that's going to have to be revisited. Essentially, like during COVID, it was okay because you could shout over at somebody and they'd hear you. As he said, if someone was whispering to somebody, you'd hear it on the pitch during COVID. Like he said, he was trying to shout to players that are 30 yards away yesterday and they couldn't hear him among 8,000, which I have to say, it did look obvious enough that the majority of the 8,000 were travelling Limerick supporters. I know they weren't travelling too far from all around Limerick to nearby Ennis, but definitely looked like they brought a bigger support than the home support, which is surprising enough. But and he thinks that the Mayor Forna thing is going to have to be revisited. He just said it's very difficult. I know for a fact I was trying to get to shout in messages during the game in the first half. There was the crowd when the crowd was really involved and there was noise in the stadium and there's only 8,000 here and the lads couldn't hear me. So this is a problem. Why do you think the Mayor Forna was introduced in the first place? Only so we could get messages in. I think it'll be very interesting to hear the comments of others throughout the season when people will struggle to get messages into their team. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, the Greg Kennedy incident was probably one of the main reasons why the Mayor Forna was gotten rid of.
A good catch by Greg.
A good catch, yeah. And some of the Mayor Fornas in football standing where they shouldn't have been standing. To me, if they don't want that to happen, I think the Mayor Forna should be able to travel anywhere around the perimeter of the pitch, but not onto the pitch. Like, would there be any? Is there any issue?
Does that defeat the purpose though? Because if the player's 10 yards in off the sideline, you won't be able to hear him.
But like then maybe the player has to come out to them to give a message, and that's your responsibility then. But the Mayor Forna is having no interruption with play. They're not on the pitch. The game will never have to be stopped because the Mayor Forna is in there. He can get into the goalie and talk to the goalie. Probably at the end line can talk to the full forward line as well, or the full back line either side. And he goes around the perimeter. And if you want to get a message, if it's that important to get a message to your team, maybe the player has to lean over to you and come close to you. And if you're punished or that player is punished and the player comes out and he's caught out of position because he's talking to the Mayor Forna, that's the Mayor Forna's fault. That's the team's fault. So that's just something I think should happen because it is probably unfair. Like imagine you were on the line in a big game, you were over a team and you just wanted to switch your cornerbacks and you can't get that message to the cornerback. So you want to tell the keeper to do X, Y, or Z. I just think you should be able to do that. It was interesting. Brian Lohan maybe gave away some of the keys to the kingdom yesterday. He said they were essentially using the physio or the doctor to send a message in where possible. If there was a player down injured, maybe the doctor would go in and look at that player and then go off the pitch via another player and pass over a message. So that's how they were getting around it, but it's still not the same. I've no issue with seeing Paul Kinnerk or Mikey Beavens or these lads. I like seeing them involved in the game. I prefer to see them going around the perimeter and being involved in the game. I think it adds even a bit more colour and more personality and more character to games. So I wouldn't see an issue with that now. I don't want them maybe running on the field and been in the way, but I don't think they'd be in the way if they were just allowed to go outside the perimeter.
Yeah, PWell74 put a bright orange gear, I suppose, bib on the Mayor Forna, and he won't confuse players out the field. Also, if like that issue with Dublin and they would have had mentors on the field and they're blocking up the lanes for kickouts.
Now it's not just Dublin. There were several.
I know it's not, but they were the ones that were highlighted, I suppose. But maybe it's just a free against them if they even try it. So
Yeah,
like,
go
if
if you
you're
go.
in there
Yeah,
for and you're
yeah.
getting away free against you, and look, don't come crying to us. You were told do not get in the way. You put yourself in a position. Tough.
Spill milk.
Yeah.
But like, if you say there, if it's zero tolerance, if it's
Yeah.
like Mayor Forna's on the pitch, Mayor Forna's in the way, you're gone, out,
And it could
gone.
lose you in All Ireland though. Could be the last second of a game.
But there, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So like, I think like harsh punishment, and it just cuts it out completely. I've nothing now, pure defenceless, no Mayor Forna.
Joe Butler, guys, they've no one running on the field in rugby or soccer, and they get on with it. Those games are probably a bit more slow moving. I think it might be slightly easier in those sports. But look, maybe you have a point there too.
They are, Shane, definitely. Like, I remember heard Rob Carney talking about recently, like they could have a 2-minute break in play. He said he played a bit of Gaelic, and it was like up and down, no breaks in play. He said the level of conditioning for GA compared to rugby, and how you need to be able to go. Whereas rugby, it's like big physical effort, break, big physical effort, break. So it's much easier to coach, I would say, in rugby and get kind of things in. Whereas in a lot of rugby is set plays as well. Do you know what I mean? Like GA is not really like that. I just don't think you should be robbing teams of the ability to communicate with their players. They can only communicate with them at the start of the game and at half time, as per new rules now with water breaks gone.
And as managers like to say, look, we prepare the team. Once you go out into the white lines, it's up to you to lead. And, we only do the coach and try and prepare you beforehand. So, hey, let's get back to that. Brian Lohan wants the All-Ireland back to September. But look, I mean, I actually wouldn't mind if the All-Ireland was September. But just that you're moving the windows a little bit around. So like that the All-Ireland might then start, or the inter-county season might then start in, I don't know, would that make it March? And then the club has all the way from October all the way down to late February. I mean, I wouldn't mind if you did that so much, but then that might clash even more with college stuff, both freshers and Sigurds and Fitz. So I don't know. I mean, look, I wouldn't be rushing to move it now, but as long as the window for the club season isn't narrowed, I don't mind if you rejig it a little bit.
I think there was a small pop at the Clare County Board maybe in there as well. He said the argument is about the clubs, but in a lot of counties, when they go back to their clubs in those first 6 weeks, there's nothing happening anyway. And that was certainly the case in Clare last year. Like, lads probably shouldn't, there's no need for lads to be sitting on their hands for 6 weeks for the first round to be played. I'm not sure about September, but in August, I think will be fine. Like early August. Don't give up your whole summer maybe to other sports. July might be a bit early, but again, we don't want club players to be playing on slop, a couple of weeks before Christmas either,
Yeah. So Kerry can continue with these players under the parentage rule. Like Antrim had been looking at trying to block that, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
No, there was a meeting at the Cushta Banishty, I think, at the weekend, so that's been knocked on its head. I think a lot more has been made out of this than has needed to be, I have to say. I don't see a big issue with it. They obviously have a massive affiliation to Kerry, and it's in their bloodlines. And I don't think Kerry are abusing the kind of dispensation that they got. So I don't see a big issue with it. And if it makes Kerry a bit stronger and these lads are fully bought in, I have no issue with it whatsoever.
Yeah, the Connacht League Shield final was on. Leitrim beat Mayo 224 points. First senior hurling victory over Mayo in 40 years last Friday night. And the jerseys that were worn by Leitrim, sponsored by a Dublin kebab restaurant, Zaytoon, sort of place now that I've wandered around the corner from Coppers at 4 a.m. and got an old kebab in there. And let's be fair, it's fairly tasty for anyone else who knows what I'm talking about. Get your comments in, I know you do. Between that and what's that place on Camden Street, the chipper that turns into a bit of a nightclub at 3 a.m. It's is it Maximus or something like that? And I'm thinking of that nightclub that's just across from Flannery's. Sorry, it's a chipper that feels like a nightclub. Is it called Maximus?
You've been in there. You're a frequenter, I'd say.
Sure, I wandered in once or twice. The Harty Cup semi-finals were on, and I think everyone saw the Shane O'Brien clip, that brilliant score he got for Ardscoil Reach. He scored 2-6 from play. Also good for them was Keane Scully, Niall O'Farrell, JJ Carey and John Fitzgerald. It was an unbelievable piece of skill there. So that's Ardscoil Reach with a 4-18 to 112 win over Thurles CBS. They'll meet St. Joseph's Tulla, who beat De La Salle 20 points to 113 there. Sean Withcombe with 15 points there, and Fionn Hickey with a couple.
Yeah, I think it's their first time in a Harty Cup final.
I got the name of the chipper that turns into a nightclub wrong. It's Babylon. And there's plenty of people horsing in with the comment there.
By the rivers of Babylon, I'd say Jack Dunphy, Sean Brennan, all these boys commented in have been in there with you, I'd say, or have been in there at different stages.
Definitely Sean Brennan has. Okay, let's talk a small bit of football here. The O'Byrne Cup final was on over the weekend. John Small got a red card for leaving one on Evan O'Carroll, if we could put it that way. But, you know, that clip that went floating around, it showed Evan O'Carroll wasn't exactly an innocent party there. To be honest, I think Evan O'Carroll asked for it. And, you know, John Small has a bit of a reputation here, but I think if a player is going to do what Evan O'Carroll did, you're kind of asking for trouble.
Yeah, I think it was Damien Diver, the former Donegal player, commented on Twitter that some manager always said that if you throw it, you're less likely to get caught if you throw the first punch, whereas the person who throws the second punch nearly always gets caught. But like it was a pretty bad punch to John Small's face, and like in that case, you kind of you have to hit back. Do you know what I mean? It's cause and reaction. Like you just have to. So I think he's available to play the league game, even though he was suspended. There's possible talk that he could miss a game in next year's O'Byrne Cup, which I don't think would break his heart. But he's definitely available to play their first league game next weekend. You'd be fairly sick if you. After all the preseason training, if you missed a league game based on something that happened in an O'Byrne Cup game. But fairness to Dublin, like Brian Fenton was brilliant again. I know you saw bits and pieces of this. He was, you know, to see him excelling at this stage of the year, you'd be hoping from a Dublin point of view that he's just able to keep getting better and better throughout this year. Maybe he wasn't his normal self last year. Laois put up a decent show, in fairness, and Evan O'Carroll was very good. And he's probably causing the Dublin defence plenty of problems, but we kind of said it was a no-win for Dessie Farrell, and the fact that they won with 14 men is probably maybe a better win even than it looks on paper. But it's early silverware. It's, you know, a couple of good wins under their belt, and it's probably signs that, unlike other years in the league when a lot of lads would be, you know, returning throughout the league, a lot of their big guns have been starting all these games already. Kieran Kilkenny again, I think he's played all three O'Byrne Cup games so far. So probably a bit of a statement of intent there that they're going to go with a lot of their big guns early doors this spring.
A bit of a story breaking there. Well, it's not exactly a scandalous story or anything like that, but a bit more in terms of what's happening with John Bubbles O'Dwyer. So we might as well talk about that. That he's been left out of the league panel because of a knee injury. So Colin Bonner has been speaking about this on Tip FM, and he goes, who wouldn't like to have John on their panel? I've been talking to John since December, and he's having trouble with his knee, and we got it scanned. It just developed. He tried the knee again out in early January in a challenge match, and it was a lot worse than he thought. We're back to square one where we need to work on it again and get what's causing the issue, what's causing the pain. And in terms of like whether we'd see him again this year, he says there's no one ever ruled out, and someone who has the skill level that Bubbles has and the experience that he has, it would be foolish to rule out any player of that caliber. So I think that people were looking for maybe issues that weren't there. I think even when I talked about it during the week on Tipcast with we actually, funnily enough, forgot to talk about it on the show the other day, but when I was talking to Shane Brophy about it, we were sort of talking this through. You know, like, why would you leave out a player of this? Is this sort of sending out a message that we want players who are workhorses or whatever? But then I was looking through some of the other panelists, and I'm like, well, it's not like all of these players are necessarily workhorses. And John O'Dwyer has probably averaged, like, in All-Ireland finals, maybe 5 points, 1-2, 1-3 from playing every game. They were all against Kilkenny in All-Ireland finals. Why would you not want a player of this class? So it's good now, I think, from a Tip point of view that has been clarified.
Yeah, I think so, yeah, because as you say, the GA is great for conspiracies or great for idle talk or someone heard this or someone heard that. This is the reason he's not involved. I think it's heartening from a Tip point of view that, you know, if he can get his knee right and get his body right, that there's a fair chance that he could be back in. And, you know, if he's going to be behind a lot of them, conditioning-wise this year, like, he could do a lot worse than Spring and Bubbles with 15 minutes to go, because you know what he can do. In fairness, you know what he can do at the highest level. Interesting one. How many All-Stars has John O'Dwyer got, and what years did he pick them up in offhand?
I think he has no All-Star.
He has one All-Star.
What year? Yeah. What year was that? 16?
14.
Yeah, sure. He was obviously unbelievable that year.
But yeah, I would have. In my head, I had it that he had an All-Star in maybe 19 after he got that brilliant goal in the All-Ireland final. 16, he was kind of coming off the bench until the All-Ireland final. But it's funny with some, like, Dermot Connolly only has 2 All-Stars. considered one of the, the great kind of flair players and one of the classiest players of all time. Like when you think of wrists, you think of bubbles, and there's only kind of one All-Star, and that's 8 years ago, which is just kind of, I just thought that was interesting when I looked into it a bit more.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you. Maybe it's touches of brilliance, but maybe the All-Stars are more for sustained brilliance. Maybe that could be potentially a real reason.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Right, so let's talk about the Dr. McKenna Cup final. Monaghan beat Donegal by 111 to 13 points. First McKenna Cup in 19 years. Doesn't matter all that much. Pre-season competition, nice to get it. It was on TG Carr the other night, and it was a good, exciting finish there. I suppose it's just kind of one of those things that, from Banty's point of view, it's nice to get a bit of silverware on the board.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And it was Donegal were kind of coming strong at the end, and Monaghan were probably just holding on. But at this stage of the year, it's like you got plenty of kind of new faces in. I think Michal Bannigan kind of top scored with 5 points, and they got lots of new faces in there. Like, how much stock do you place in a preseason competition? Probably not too much, but it's the first one to win, as you say, in 19 years. So it's a good start. You can only win probably, what can you win? 4 titles this year, and they've got 1 on the board. Will they pick up more silver this year? I kind of was thinking about after last year, and you're thinking, like, Monaghan were very close to Tyrone last year, beating a point, I think, in an Ulster final in Croke Park. So they'll probably fancy them. We probably think about maybe a Galway would take inspiration from Tyrone winning, and maybe a couple of other teams. Then you're thinking, like, Monaghan were very close to them. So they'll take an awful lot of inspiration from them as well.
And what an Ulster final that was. The day that Niall Morgan and Rory Began took over a game. The 2 goalkeepers took it over. Kerry won the McGrath Cup final, first time since 2017. Like, I was looking at Owen Cormacan writing about it, and he was like, the way they've beaten Limerick, Tipperary, and now Cork, they've won by a combined aggregate of 55 points. So this game against Cork, Keith Ricken in his first season there, 217 to 11 points. And, Jack O'Connor, first piece of silverware in his third coming as manager. And he goes, you have to get the balance right too. You don't want fellas quaking in their boots and looking over their shoulder either, but you certainly have to keep fellas on their toes. I think we've good competition now throughout. So obviously he's trying to get a bit more of that involved there. The Cork team was fairly experimental now, it must be said, with only 6 players who featured in the 2021 Munster final, where they were absolutely beaten out the gate by the Kingdom. Paul Gainey got 1-4, Tony Brosnan got 3 points, Thomas Sullivan got a goal, David Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Jack Savage, Killian Spillane and Paddy Clifford, they all got a couple of points each. For Cork, Brian Hurley, he scored 5, Mark Cronin got 3, Rory Maguire 2, and Daniel Deneen got 1. Cork are away to Roscommon in the league next week, while Kerry are away to Kildare. Like you said, that bit of a tasty match, considering Jack O'Connor was over Kildare the last 2 years, and I think, he kind of made sort of not too subtle advances on a podcast, which, may have helped grease the wheels to move him down there. But Keith Ricken, he says, ours is a long-term project. You take the learnings from every day that you go out, but our job is also to fix as we go. We have to marry both, and that is a difficult task in itself. Of the guys we've played this month, around 20 had never played senior football with Cork before, so that's great stuff for us. If this was a band and we were playing shit music now, you wouldn't be giving out to anybody. You'd be delighted they're picking up the instruments, because we only have 4 or 5 weeks of football done, and in that time we're trying to play McGrath Cup, we're trying to deal with COVID and trying to deal with colleges football. Some speaker, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great way of putting things. And sometimes when you break things down really simply and you make a comparison with some other discipline, it just kind of makes sense. And you almost give a person or acknowledge the leeway that you need to give. And he just has a great way of speaking things on really, really simple terms that everyone can kind of relate to. And like, when you've blooded that many new players, like Kerry did not blood anything like that throughout the McGrath Cup. They went with their season veterans, whereas Cork probably looked at, of course, a new manager coming in. Not saying that Jack O'Connor was obviously new as well, but he went with the tried and trusted. Keith Ricken wanted to see probably a lot of these faces that he had at under 20 level, and a lot of the All-Ireland winner minors from a couple of years ago. So it's good to have given them a bit of game time. And listen, it's probably no harm that they realise that the level Kerry are at, and that's the level that they have to aspire to in Munster now as well.
Yeah, just a reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. This Kerry jersey perhaps you'd fancy, maybe that Offaly one of these. There's a huge selection of different jerseys of counties across the board. So have a look there, and the promo code OurGame will give you 15% off. Patreon.com/OurGame, £5 a month to get all the audio podcasts. Thursday shows are going to be on Patreon only, so that's the only way you're going to be able to see those. So the Tyrone players, they're continuing to opt out here. And I see John Lynch putting a tweet out saying, I'm going to get hounded for this, but I cannot for the life of me understand the exodus of players stepping away from the Tyrone squad. Geez, I played for a team that won nothing compared, but I was never going to walk away until I knew in my heart that I couldn't help, I suppose is what he meant to say. It looked like a typo. So Tiernan McCann is the latest to go. Before that, Ronan O'Neill, inside forward, Bart Bradley, inside forward, Hugh Pat McGeary and Michael Cassidy. They've all gone. And these are all good quality players. Is it in any way concerning, do you think, to Fergal Logan and Brian Dewar? And also, does it affect their chance of retaining the All-Ireland?
There's definitely a small bit of concern in that it will decrease the standard of training sessions because these are all guys that, should be vying for a place, and they're going to be pushing lads, be it on the starting 15 or in the starting 26. So it could bring down the quality a small bit. I think in John's tweet, I think one of the things that I focus on most is he said, geez, I played for a team that won nothing. I think the key thing is there that he actually played, whereas a lot of these guys haven't been starting. They weren't starting last year. Tiernan McCann is obviously, I think Tiernan McCann's an all-star, is he? But he wasn't really playing under Brian Dewar and Fergal Logan. None of these guys were really probably playing regularly, particularly throughout that championship run. So you kind of sometimes you have to weigh it up if you're not playing that much, or if you're not maybe in your manager's thoughts that much. But after winning All Ireland, it is surprising. It is surprising because I don't know, everything you'd imagine would go on the back burner. Even if you're not playing, we still won an All-Ireland. We still experienced the euphoria of that. We're still part of, a squad. There's only 3 other squads within our county that have done anything like this before. So there is a bit of surprise in it. I wouldn't read too much into it, though. I don't know what you think, but I'd read more into the fact that they're probably we're struggling to make the 26 at times and getting very limited game time, and it's hard to equate the commitment with what you're getting out of it then, as in you want to play. You're not training to sit on the line or come on for a minute. You want to play, you want to start. Now everybody can't start as well, but I'd say that's a big part of it with that kind of that quintet there.
Yeah, there was a time in my life when I didn't understand why players would step away from big county panels, especially. Remember when players used to head away for the summer to go on a J1 or whatever, and you'd be thinking, well, why are you heading away for the summer now? A lot of them got a nice little payday to go over to America. But a lot of it is down to the cues you get from a manager. So the more you talk to a manager, or the more they probably almost seem to avoid you or don't talk to you that much, you get these sort of little subtle cues all the time. How much am I in the plans for next year? Does Tiernan McCann want to put his life on hold for the next year and ultimately find out that he's going to get maybe 10 minutes at the end of a game? He wants to be starting, and I'm sure that it's the same for those other lads. Some possibly have reasons to do with personal commitments that they can't, work, whatever it might be. Others might just feel like I'm on the road long enough. Others might be like, I'm so close. I played my best stuff in the last year or so. Maybe we had lads who were missing for different reasons or whatever, were injured and still played ahead of me. And you know what? I've committed long enough, and I don't think I can go through this again. Maybe some have done a bit of pre-season. They've realised through the McKenna Cup and challenge matches that I'm just not going to be in their plans. There might have been lads away with COVID. There might have been lads away with colleges, and they still get their game. And they're thinking, do you know what? I've better things to do with my time than sit on the bench and collect a medal, because it is all about playing at the end of the day.
It is, yeah. I remember chatting to Tiernan McCann a couple of years ago at some sort of promotional gig. I think he was working as a locum chemist, where he could be that basically means you could be on call anywhere in a given day. You actually don't know where you're going to be tomorrow, maybe till the evening before, which is far from easy when you're an inter-county player. Everything is about routine. That's why so many of them go into teaching, because they know they're going to be 9 to whatever, and they're going to be off the same amount of days as they're on, basically. Funny enough, we're chatting to Fintan Burke last week, and he's an electrician, and he just said, yeah, geez, I wish kind of nearly I'd paid more attention in school or just applied for teaching or whatever, but he's on his feet all day, every day, and he's in it's funny, like he's in the minority now of, you know, a tradesman playing intercounty football or hurling, like, because there's not too many anymore. You'd show me the amount of farmers, the amount of electricians, the amount of builders. It's just very, very difficult because your schedule is so unpredictable. Whereas teachers or even most office jobs, there's a bit more predictability, and it makes it an awful lot easier to give the commitment that you want to give to a county. So you don't know the circumstance involved with those players, but I'd imagine there's probably a mixture of work, family, and maybe not being selected as well.
Yeah, and a couple of more things just before we finish up. Michael Maher's London reign is finally going to begin this weekend in terms of the league anyway, because he's entering his 3rd season as London manager, but he's only 5 competitive games and no championship games during that time because of COVID. So he's London-born man, and he took charge in late 2019, so he'll be out against Carlow this weekend. Now, the All-Ireland Intermediate Ladies Club semi-final was on this weekend. St. Sylvester's, they beat Kinawley 4-11 to 2-5, and the junior Mullinahone.
Yeah, Sinead Ahern got a bag of goals, I think, or it was very influential, I think, yeah.
I think Paul Kelly might be involved with Mullinahone as their ladies beat St. Brennan's 1-6 to 0-6. And I believe that there was a neutral venue being tossed for, and he chose Callan, which is only about 10 minutes out the road. And they've been training over in Callan for God knows how long in preparation, and they got the win here. That's what I'm hearing anyway. And if that's the case, that's the cuteness you need at this level.
I tell you a good one, actually. Years ago, Coolderry were playing Burr at minor level, and Coolderry were weak enough at minor level that year. So the manager at the time, and who shall remain nameless, the Coolderry manager, said, sure, we'll go in and play in Burr. And they got beaten or whatever. But they knew that a very strong minor team the year after, and they'd take every advantage they could get. So they took the home advantage the year after, the long-term thinking, and they, you know, won by a point or two or whatever. But just those tiny little margins. I love lads that goes for those margins and think long-term.
Okay, what about the goat of the week? I'm going to go in heavy here on a schools game, and I'm going to give Shane O'Brien of Ard School Reach the nod for getting 2-6 in that semi-final against Thurles CBS. Football side of things, I'm just going to go with Paul Ganey with that 1-4 for Kerry. Not a bad little scoreline to tot up. No,
this is no hurling or football. This is the goat of the weekend. 2 letters, T and J. I'm not looking any further. Like he was on the front of our paper today, and he was on the back of it as well. Like, for that's how big it was yesterday. It was front page news, it was back page news, and it was just it was thrilling. And people won't forget that for a long, long time. And not being smart, me and you always talk about how great the club is. Come on, Andrew, you're dead right. I was definitely going to go for TJ, but me and you always talk about how good the club is. And I just feel like this year we've gotten so many, we've been vindicated so many times with some of what we've seen on Saturdays and Sundays. And yesterday topped it all off for me. Sets up we've had a lot of poor All-Ireland club hurling finals in recent years. Outside of year replay and draw and replay against Na Piarsaigh, I can't remember the last really good club hurling final. But it looks like it's set up for an absolute belter with Ballyhale and Ballygunner, all because of that man, the goat of the week, the great TJ.
Okay, well, that's it for the show today. One more reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. If you want to get the jerseys we're wearing, any of those on screen, or the massive selection that they have on the website, use the promo code OurGame, you'll get 15% off that. Also, if you want to see Thursday's show, and spread the word on this, because some people probably won't know, it's patreon.com/OurGame. It's the only place to watch the show. It won't be streamed on any other platform. It's a $5 a month, which over the course of the year probably works out at 50 cents a show. So that'd be a great place to support the channel. Okay, Michael, thanks very much. We'll do it again.
Cheers, Shane.